Well, doesn't it seem like the perfect day to kick off the official Pleasant Company collection tour? So, as I have alluded in many videos, I am moving at the end of this year, which is basically in like less than a couple of months now. I am moving to Australia. So, there's a whole story that goes along with that, but that's not why we're here today. Today, we just are going to do a slow, cozy collection tour of my entire Felicity Merriman collection from the 1990s, basically. This collection is completely first edition. I've spent years putting it together, painstakingly researching every single detail and spending hours on eBay every single week. I mean, I literally look at eBay more than most people look at Instagram. So I have spent quite a few hours researching and shopping for this collection, and I'm so proud of it. I have pretty much everything at this point, at least as far as the scope of my collection. I collect 1986 to basically Y2K Pleasant Company. So there might be one or two things that are missing from this collection to be like complete as far as everything they made for Felicity, but for the most part, it's all here. So like I said, we're going to do it slow and cozy because I know a lot of people like to just relax and put something on for a couple of hours while they're doing other things. And that's what this video is for. I'm going to go through basically every single piece in the collection. I'm going to tell you everything that I know about it and if there are any interesting stories that go along with it. But we're going to go page by page through the catalog, basically. We're going to start with the very first spread, which is Meet Felicity, and we'll go through the school story, Christmas, summer, winter, birthday, all of that. And we're going to do it in catalog order. So I'm going to go ahead and move some things out of the way, and we'll just go ahead and get started. It's going to be a long one, so grab a snack and let's look at my Felicity Merriman collection. So a little bit of a fair warning, there might be some incongruent times throughout this video. I'm probably going to have to film it over several days because this is quite a vast collection. So if my hair or lighting or anything changes, that's why. But I really want to take my time and go through every detail. And so we're just going to do this right and look at every single thing. So we're going to start by looking at one of my Felicity dolls. So this is one of two Felicity dolls that I own that are basically completely mint in the box, a 1991 bona fide first edition Felicities. And they can be kind of hard to spot because there are a few different features on them that basically make them a true first edition from fall of 1991 when she was first released. And a lot of it has to do with her coloring and her face paint, but you can kind of start by looking at her tags first of all. So let's go ahead and have an actual look at her. Now, this is probably, I would say, my second or third favorite Felicity. I have a total of 3 Felicity dolls in my collection. All are 1991 first editions. One of them we might not end up seeing in this video because she is packed away in storage at another location, but she is more or less a spitting image of this Felicity right here, who is pretty much brand new in the box. She has been out, so we're going to actually take her out and look at her today, but this is how Felicity originally shipped in 1991 in the burgundy box with a paper band, and we have her original meat outfit from 1991. This version, I'm going to have to be careful so she doesn't fall out of the box. This version came originally with a hardback book. Her product code on her sticker, which is probably going to be a little bit difficult for you to read, is EDH, and that stands for Felicity Doll hardcover or hardback for the book. So if she came with a paperback book, it would be EDP. And one fun fact I think a lot of people don't know about Felicity is that her original name when she was being developed was Elizabeth, which might actually be a familiar name for you if you're familiar with Felicity's lore, because in her book, she ends up getting a friend named Elizabeth, who later became a doll, but Felicity was originally going to be named Elizabeth, so that's why her product codes all start with E and not F. So everything that we'll look at today, I probably won't show you every box, but that's another thing I forgot to mention is not only is this all first edition, but pretty much all of it has its original packaging. Again, this collection took me about 4 years to put together of active searching every single day, trying to find fair or good prices on all of this stuff, and having them complete, mint condition, and first editions from their original release year. So this is the pamphlet that came with Felicity, a very standard pamphlet, a picture from the catalog basically, and she has a copyright 1991 on the pamphlet. Now, this Felicity actually would have originally come with her Meet Felicity hardback book. nestled in this little cradle here, but it's actually in this book set. So we have seen this Felicity before on my channel, I think about a year ago, because I got a really large lot of original first edition Felicity items that you could go back and watch if you want to, but you're getting a little bit more of an updated look today. So I think this video is a little bit more exciting, but it came with this complete keepsake book set. And when I tell you, these are mint condition books, they're so minty that I'm scared to take them out. So the first book in this set actually would have been cradled in here, but for now it lives here because this Felicity doesn't stay on display for most of her life. So I've got her book out so I can look at that every day pretty much. But yeah, that would have been nestled in here. And this is the original cardboard book cradle that holds her book in. Again, just like kind of a fun little packaging detail, because a lot of times things like this went missing, or if you just bought a doll that didn't have the book with her, this wasn't included at all, obviously. And then here we have Felicity in her original box. Now, like I've said, this Felicity has been out before, so she's not fully strapped in, but one really interesting thing about her is that she does have the original rubber bands that strapped her in. So we'll look at them really quick because I always find these details really, really interesting. So this is the neck brace that is basically the same neck brace that American Girl uses to this day, just your standard brace that goes through the back. But back in the early Pleasant Company days, they weren't using plastic to strap them in like they do now. They actually just use standard rubber bands. So these are actually really hard to find. The earliest dolls came with these basically, and rubber bands, as we know, tend to deteriorate over the years. So oftentimes these were lost or thrown away because they just got really hard and crumbled. But hers is stretchy. I'm scared to pull it, but it is in fact still stretchy. I could put her in exactly as she was if I wanted to, but basically the rubber band goes in through this hole here. It goes like around her waist, through this hole here, back down the back through this hole, and then around her feet. So that's how she was strapped in at the waist and feet. And then there was this additional rubber band that has broken that strapped her neck in. So if you want to know exactly what Felicity looked like back in the day in her box, that's exactly how. But I'm going to set this aside so we can actually look at Felicity herself. So as I said, this is a 1991 Felicity. Again, she still has her original hand tag that is nice and crispy, which we love. And I've got her in her original meat accessories as well. So Felicity originally did not come with her mob cap on. I've just got it on her now because I think it looks good, but I've got that on her as well as her coral necklace that was part of her meat accessories that came in this box right here. And again, we have the product code on the back, EMA, which stands for Felicity Meat Accessories. And in addition to her mob cap and coral necklace, we have this beautifully embroidered first edition coin purse. I think that's what we call this. And like all the other dolls that came in a similar format, we have her handkerchief here, if I can get it open. I probably should have gotten a doll stand for her, but I feel like I'm holding her like like holding a toddler at a baseball game to watch all the plays. But this is the handkerchief that she came with, and Felicity is the original Bitcoin investor because she came with a bit coin. So those are her original meat accessories, and when I display a Felicity, I like to just tuck the coin in there because they tend to get lost over the years. Her Bitcoin can be kind of difficult to get your hands on because it's so small and easily lost, but we just tuck her coin and her hanky and her purse, and she's actually pretty good at, hang on, I think my voice is getting muffled because she's in the way of the microphone, but Felicity's actually pretty good at holding her coin purse. If I can strap it around her wrist. But this is a complete first edition Felicity from 1991. And one of the ways you can spot that is her tag in her dress is the one with the 1986 copyright, and it says that she was made in West Germany. I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty small on the screen, but these are what all the dress tags looked like in the late 80s and early 90s. They're really similar to the paper tags that they had for the white body dolls, but by Felicity's time, they were making these out of a satin ribbon, but they were still quite wide compared to the ribbon tags that we ended up seeing sort of like in the mid 90s. So that's one thing to look out for. And her shift also has that same tag. It can be kind of hard to see again because she's got a couple of layers on, but if you can see right there very closely, we have also the wide 1986 made in West Germany tag on her shift, which is basically her underwear. Again, all of the original dolls, and I think this basically went all the way through Kit, basically in the year 2000, they all sort of had the same format. They had their 6 original books. They came with their historically accurate pair of underwear, and their meat accessories generally would have some form of a hat, a necklace, a handkerchief, some sort of currency, unless it was like Kirsten, which I guess they didn't have coins back then. I don't know. And some sort of like bag or purse. So that was Felicity's version of all of this, basically. And another thing that's actually really good about this particular Felicity is her socks are still intact. The original socks for Felicity were made out of actual wool, so it's very common to see these have insect damage on them. So if you ever see a Felicity on eBay that's got a bunch of holes in her socks, it means she's probably not been stored very well, and she's probably been like crawled on by moths at best. So always keep that in mind. If you're trying to look for like a really nice crispy Felicity, check her socks, because a lot of times they have holes in them because they weren't stored well. All right, she doesn't want to hold onto her purse, so I'm going to set it over here. But I'll go ahead and take her cap off because we're talking about the doll herself. Felicity has the most beautiful shade of red hair. If you've never seen one in person, it's a very coppery red, and it looks so pretty with her meat outfit and all these like evergreen and burgundy like rose colors in here. Felicity's color palette is quite beautiful, and it definitely suits the Pleasant Company burgundy color scheme really, really well. As you can see, like we've got some burgundy things on screen, and she just looks so quintessentially Pleasant Company. And I know that she's a bit of a controversial character, and we're gonna do a whole episode on her before too long. I'm still working on it, but her existence is a little bit controversial in the American Girl world. But if we just look at her in terms of doll design and quality and historical accuracy, I can really tell that Felicity was Pleasant Rowland's pet project that I think she had been dreaming of since day one with the company. After all, Felicity's story is based in colonial Williamsburg, where Pleasant Rowland got the original inspiration to start the product line in the first place. And as we go through her collection today, you're really going to see how many upgrades in quality Felicity got to her collection compared to some of the earlier girls like Molly, Samantha, and Kirsten. But I just love a Felicity doll. And again, this is one of the earlier ones where she has bright green eyes, but they're not like the super duper bright green, and they're not the darker ones that we kind of saw later on as well. Felicity has had some eye color changes over the years, and I have to say, I think the 1991 ones are my favorite because they're still very bright, but at the same time, she doesn't look like she's about to steal your soul. So this is one of 3 extremely beautiful Felicity dolls in my Pleasant Company collection. And while I've got sort of her original things out, I figured I would show off my Stony Clover Lane pouch that I picked up kind of recently. I've been trying to be good and not just buy every single piece of nostalgia bait that American Girl puts out, because you'll basically go bankrupt trying to buy little bags and blankets and things. So I'm trying to be really selective of the things that I pick, but I really loved these Stony Clover Lane pouches, and they got kind of accurate with Felicity's. You can tell like the colors, are a little bit off. They probably could have done one more sample before sending this to press, but I do think this looks really beautiful on display. Again, I love the original pattern from Felicity's dress. It's just so iconically Pleasant Company. So I picked this up. I think it just looks really good on display, just sort of leaned up against the books, and you kind of see that repetition of pattern. And I just think it's extremely delightful, just like Felicity. Well, maybe not her story, but the doll herself. Come on, can you really argue with this beauty? All right, I'm going to pack her up loosely. We might actually see her again later in this video. I'm going to be a good boy and actually show you the outfits on dolls today. We're not just going to hold them up and dangle them. I'm really going to try and do my best work today. So if you tuned in today, I hope you feel like you're in for a treat, because I'm really taking my time because I just want to document every single little piece. Alrighty, moving right along, we have Felicity's School Story, which was the second book in her series, so it ended up being the second page of the catalog. So naturally, since Pleasant Rowland was a school teacher, the second book in the series for every doll was Blank Learns a Lesson, which was basically a school story for each of the characters. So Felicity's School Story is sitting right in front of us. This was pretty much everything featured on page 2 of the catalog. Last week on Patreon, we went through Felicity's entire collection in the catalog, so I think it's kind of fun to see everything in person today. So I'm going to try not to repeat myself too much, but this is everything from Felicity's School Story. So we have a new doll here, which is actually my favorite Felicity, we'll talk about in a second. And we have her in her school outfit. We have her school books and supplies, and we also have her tea lesson. And then in addition to that, we have one of the more beautiful pieces of furniture that Pleasant Company ever made, which is her spindle-back writing desk. So as I said before, everything has its original box, and we won't look at every single box today, like I said, but it is still kind of fun to see the original packaging for everything from 1991, because the School Story and the Christmas Story were also 1991 first year releases, as was most of her bedtime collection. So I'm going to quickly open this box up here because there's probably a pamphlet in here that we can look at just to kind of get a better look at the catalog image, because it was more or less the same on the catalog versus the pamphlets that came with everything. So as you can see here, this is basically everything you're looking at pretty much in the flesh. I mean, through the screen. But yeah, it's just so fun to actually put these entire collections together and see what we saw in the catalogs and then actually see the whole thing put together, because as I've said a million times, I didn't have any of this stuff until I was in my 30s. So most of this I've seen for the first time only within the last few years. But we'll start with this Felicity right here, because this is actually the first Felicity I've ever purchased. So I've had her for, I guess, like a little over 4 years, around 4 years. And she is one of the most beautiful that I have personally ever laid eyes on. She has all the same features as the last Felicity we looked at, but I think this one has even better facial coloring than the last one. And one of the ways you can spot a first edition Felicity is their cheeks are super bright and rosy. A lot of the coloring kind of turned peachier sort of in early 1992. So the very first Felicities are going to have really bright coral red cheeks. And that personally is my favorite color on them. I think they look really lively and bright, whereas the peachy color kind of blends into the skin more and kind of ties in a little bit too much with the hair. And I think Felicity started to look a little bit more washed out over the years. I think the ones that look like this one are the prettiest, which is why I have 3 of them. And I probably will end up picking up some more. I've been trying to be quote unquote good and not buy 10 of the same doll, but as my display space gets bigger, hopefully in the next house, and I can actually do full wide and deep bookcases for each doll, I would like to have a Felicity for every page in the catalog. So before too long, I'll probably be hunting for some more, but this is my first and favorite Felicity. You know, we always have those dolls in your collection that you say are like never sell dolls. And this is one I don't think I could ever sell because it was my first Felicity, the first time I ever saw her in person. And again, I just have not seen one as pretty, and it's subjective, but I just haven't seen one that I've personally thought is as pretty as this one. So as I said before, I've got her in her School Story outfit, which has this very plain mob cap. I actually don't love this one. I think it looks very much like a scullery maid. I don't know. I guess maybe it's historically accurate, but I feel like it's a little bit poofy for her. So I've tried to style it as best as I can, but this really is a beautiful outfit. I love this top on here. It's sort of a cotton material with this really delicate floral print on here. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're going to see in Felicity's collection is stuff that was also really sort of like mainstream beautiful in the 90s as well. I know that like Queen Anne furniture was really popular in the 90s, and a lot of these like ditzy like colonial florals and everything are really like were really popular at the time as well. Like I think about like the McAllister's house in Home Alone. I can't remember the style of architecture it is, but it has the same look at least of like a colonial home. And then you picture the inside with like wallpapers and things that sort of have this aesthetic. I don't know. I find this to look very Christmassy to me. Like even though it's not meant to be, this still feels really Christmassy and warm and nostalgic to me. But I absolutely love this outfit. The top has like the most beautiful floral print with vines on it. It's got this satin cording that actually laces it up. It doesn't have any Velcro on it, the top anyway. So you actually put this on like a jacket and lace it up like a boot basically. And it's really fun to do because you kind of have to be careful and get everything just so, and like do the crisscrosses like they did in the catalog. And it's just one of those things that you spend a little bit of extra time with your doll really trying to make everything look right for your display. And I just really, really love this top. And in addition to that, we have this really beautiful, I think it's a brocade skirt. And sometimes these things are so subtle, it's hard to see on camera, but it has this really beautiful like floral detailing on it, but it's all tone on tone, and it's a really beautiful thick cotton fabric. As you can see, like this is not like blowing in a slight breeze. This is a really nicely constructed skirt. And again, it's separates. So while theoretically you could mix and match Felicity's collection, there is a lot of variance in color and stuff. So there's not a whole lot of opportunities to make something that doesn't look completely insane mixing and matching. But I really do love when dolls come with separate pieces. It just shows like that extra attention to detail and high quality and everything. And yeah, like I said, I just absolutely love this outfit. Again, another Felicity in my collection that has not been attacked by insects. Her socks are completely perfect. Oh, forgot to mention her garters in her last in the last segment when we did the Meet Felicity. Her meat accessories came with garters, which were basically little ribbons that you tie around the top. I guess they were meant to hold her socks up. I'm gonna see if I can find them really quick. All right, I found them. So basically they're just sort of like these, I guess, jacquard ribbons, and they'll be really, really hard to see, but it says wove with love for Lissy 1774, which is the year of Felicity's story. So, oh, these are actually open. So I've never once in my life tied these around her socks, but basically the way you're meant to do them is like, I think just wrap them around the top here. Again, it's for show. It's not for any function. These socks stay on just fine without these, but basically you do this to tie them on. And that took me like a couple of minutes to do. I swear Pleasant Rowland gave children probably a lot more credit than they deserved. I don't know like how you would have hands small enough, but also dexterous enough to do that. So anyway, I believe that's how they're meant to go on there. And again, I didn't do a great job on it, but I mean, honestly, it would probably take me 30 minutes to tie them really nicely. But that's sort of the gist of what her garters are supposed to look like. And again, it's just like that added layer of detail. It doesn't even actually show on a collection display, but just knowing they're there, you know, I just think all of those extra layers are what make these dolls extra special. Again, the historical accuracy, I guess you could see here, like if you look really, really closely, there's an illustration that shows you how to tie these garters on. And anyway, while I grabbed that, I also wanted to show the little information card that came with her bit in her meat accessories as well. If you can see that on the screen, you can pause it and read it, but it's just like a little bit of historical accuracy for Felicity's collection. But anyway, that was a little bit of a double back so that we could look at a couple pieces from her meat accessories that I forgot to show. But anyway, we'll get back to the school story. So the final piece I have on her here is a ribbon. That's actually a replica that I've made. I used to sell, most likely when you're watching this, these ribbons won't be for sale anymore. But one of the ways I raised money for my collection was selling replica ribbons in my online shop at idreamofjohnny.com. But if you're watching this video on the premiere, they're still for sale, so you might be able to pick up a few. But if you're watching this, you know, several months in the future, they're no longer going to be available. But for a very limited time, I am selling replica ribbons for Felicity's replacement ribbon set, which we will look at in a second. Her school outfit, to my knowledge, never came with a hair ribbon. This was something that was only available as an extra add-on in the catalog, but she had a burgundy ribbon in her replacement ribbon set, and this one is a pretty accurate replica in terms of size and color, and so I think this really helps pull the outfit together. You can obviously use her meat ribbon, and it works just fine for this outfit, but I like that extra little detail of having like the burgundy ribbon because it's just like another point of difference for this outfit. All right, I've got all of her school accessories mixed together, so I got to make sure I can remember what goes with what, because we have both her tea lesson and her school books set. So I believe this goes with this. This is the tea lesson. Nope, this goes here. We have slate of some sort, a book, and of course we have the teacup, and this goes, hang on, this goes with this goes with this. Okay, I think I've got all of that in the correct order. So her school supply set basically comes with this almost fully blank journal. We've got a few pages that are filled out in here in the beginning, I believe. This is our book. Obviously we've got pictures of horses in here. I'm guessing it's pictures of Penny. Yeah, which obviously Penny was a big part of her story. And we've got this what is look like meant to look like hand marbled paper for her school book. We have this thing with the Lord's Prayer on it, and we have a made in Taiwan generic sticker on the back, which is how you know that this is the first edition from 1991. We have this little shaker here. This was meant to, I can't remember what went in this. It was supposed to be something like sawdust or something like that, that you basically, I think it was to like dry up ink blobs or whatever, but again, historically accurate. This one is still sealed in its original packaging, and that's why it's still quite silver. It's tarnished a tiny little bit, but I've just left it in the bag because these are like properly silver plated. I think they might be nickel, but I swear they're actual silver. Either way, they look like silver to me just in the way they patina when they tarnish. So anyway, this is part of that set, and this one has the original generic made in China sticker on the bottom and not a Pleasant Company sticker. And then we also have her inkwell and quill. And I had to actually do some work to get this quill to stick in this hole right here because the quill that came with my set was rather large. So I'm not going to pop it out because I feel like it might potentially damage it. But the quill actually does come out. And we have this inkwell here, which is basically made out of ceramic and even has this like detachable piece. I don't know why, but I guess maybe they're thinking if you actually did put ink in here, because this technically would work as a functioning quill. If you wanted to put ink in here, you actually could. So yeah, I guess always just pay attention if you're looking for this set that both of these pieces are in here. It could be very easy for this to go missing because this does break if it drops. So if it looks like that, it's incomplete. It's actually supposed to have this one little insert in here. And again, because this is a first edition, it has a generic made in Taiwan sticker on it and the Pleasant Company logo debossed into the bottom. So that is her school book set. And next up we have her tea lesson, which I think is so fun. So we have this, I think it's called a tea caddy. It's some sort of caddy, and it is made completely out of wood and brass, basically. So this whole thing is actually custom carved. Again, it looks like a beautiful piece of trim on a colonial home, if I'm honest. It's got really nice edges and beveling and all sorts of like divots. Like this is really well made. This is not just some simple wood box. It has very much a Queen Anne colonial feel to it. And it's got this like little miniature, almost like piano key style hinge. Piano key hinge? I can't remember. Piano hinge? I don't remember. But a long brass hinge in here, as well as a brass handle at the top with a hinge on it. So it actually, I don't think you can actually carry this like this because there's no latch on it. But then we have this faux keyhole on the front, which I guess these were supposed to lock. I don't know. I guess if you like are familiar with the Queen Anne silver chests from back in the day, those would actually have like proper keys that you would put in and lock them closed because people would keep their really expensive family heirloom silverware and stuff in there. So yeah, this is what that looks like. Again, this is so 80s and 90s looking to me because this was such a popular style at the time. My mom really loved stuff like this, at least at the time. In addition, we have her spoon, which I could make a very adult joke right now, but I'm not going to because today's not the video for that. But we have this really nice, so I think this is actually properly a silver plated spoon as well. This tarnishes over time as well. And this one does have the made in, I think, where was this made? This was made in China for Pleasant Company. So this has a Pleasant Company branded sticker on it. And then we have this handleless teacup, again with a Pleasant Company sticker on the bottom. And yeah, I will say it looks a little bit generic, but it is beautiful nonetheless. It is completely ceramic, not plastic. And this also has the Pleasant Company logo printed on the bottom, as well as a made in Taiwan sticker. It looks like it's about to scale, I have to say. It looks a little on the large side, but definitely this does not fit in her caddy. This caddy has like a really small amount of storage on the inside. I don't even think you can fit her spoon in there. So really the only thing you can fit in here is this napkin that came with this set. As you can see here, it's got sort of a nice woven pattern on it. But other than that, it's just a generic white napkin, which can go in here. And then we have her little tiny pudding, which I guess it's a tea lesson. This isn't her lunch. So she hopefully isn't going to have too much of a spike in blood sugar, but I do worry about her health a little bit. So yeah, those two things fit in here nicely, but yeah, the rest of this stuff does not. But it is all super pretty. Like I said, I especially love this tea caddy. It is so beautiful and it goes really well with this. I don't think this is a Queen Anne style writing desk, but it is really, really beautiful and it has a nice spindle back on it. Again, every single one of these pieces had to be turned by hand by a craftsman that made these things. And they were expensive back in the day. And I can't imagine they would even be able to make this stuff for any sort of reasonable price for the mass market these days. But this is a fully wooden spindleback chair for Felicity to sit in while she does her writing lesson and has her tea. But as you can see, it is fully wooden, lots of turned pieces. It even has a drawer in the bottom. So if you needed a little bit of extra display space, you can pull this out a little bit like I had it earlier and kind of prop some things in here and show them off like that. I just think this is such a beautiful set. And I've had it for about a year now and I really, really love it. It's one of my favorite things for Felicity because Felicity's furniture was just so beautiful and so incredibly well made. I mean, gosh, just well, let's hope it was well made because I just dumped the drawer out on the table, but it was a clean fall. We're good. Look at how this is made. Look at the curvature on the back of this chair. Look at the way that this is cut out. This actually comes out, so this can pivot and everything. This is just so incredibly beautifully made. I still can't get over the insane amount of quality in the Pleasant Company collections because you just really didn't see anything like this that was at least sold by the tens of thousands and potentially millions. It really was like a remarkable feat of engineering to be able to make things that were this nice, import them to America, and then sell them at a price where people could still put food on the table at the end of the day. Although not many families could. I mean, I know a lot of kids that did not get this stuff because if they got a doll, they were lucky to get that, and a lot of kids didn't get any of it. So very aspirational, maybe a little bit manipulative, but at the end of the day, these dolls were expensive because they were high quality. Their accessories were high quality, their furniture, their clothes, the doll. This was like peak, like A plus 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 level of craftsmanship. So that's why everything was as expensive as it was because every little detail was thought out. I mean, gosh, look at, again, I know we just looked at the top section of like this. I know we've already looked at the top, but I did it again. This is going to be a long video today. So anyway, I guess I would have a note that maybe they should put a stop in here so that the drawer doesn't fall out when somebody makes a YouTube video about it 30 something years later. But if you look at the seat on this chair as well, they even carved out these like comfort, like concave divots for her legs to go in. I can try and set her in this, but I can almost guarantee you it's going to be awkward and weird. But this is what we're here for today. So let's see. Take her off her official Pleasant Company stand. Again, those are kind of hard to come by these days too and can be kind of expensive. But see, I have to take this off her waist. One sec. All right, after some fiddling, we got her out of the stand. But something tells me this isn't gonna like function super great because they didn't picture her sitting down in this in the catalog, but I don't know. This looks pretty cute. Let's see. The dress is a little messed up, but let's see what we can do here. All right, I'm a little bit surprised. If you're really, really careful and don't breathe on her after you get her in the chair, you can actually get her to sit in the desk. I'm gonna try and hold her in here discreetly so she doesn't fly out and break something. But yeah, you can actually get Felicity in her writing desk. Now, that said, I wouldn't dare put anything on there that's fragile because something tells me if I take my hand off of her, she's gonna slide out. But man, oh man, how pretty is this? Again, just to like look at all the details in this chair, just looking at her sitting in it from the back. I mean, if you set up a dollhouse for Felicity and put all her furniture and stuff in it, you really could just set a full scene with her. Everything is so beautiful from front to back, basically. All right, real quick, I'll put something on our desk because it's making me crazy, but yeah. Let's put your little caddy up there. But there you go. That's Felicity's school story. One of my favorite that we're going to look at today, but we're looking at a lot of favorites today because Felicity has a particularly beautiful and very detailed collection. So I'm going to take a quick little break and break all of this down. And we're going to be back in, well, for you in literally half a second with her Christmas story. Alrighty, next up in her catalog, we have her Christmas story, which is the third in her series of books, which is Felicity's Surprise. I've always thought that this is such a beautiful Christmas set because it wasn't that traditional red and green that was so popular at the time of the doll's release. And a lot of what we're going to look at in this collection today is this really beautiful it's almost like a royal blue color. And I have the other two accessory sets in here. Do not worry. We'll go ahead and start taking them out while I'm just chatting in general about Felicity's collection. But this is one that surprised me when I saw it in person for the first time. Actually, one of the most surprising things about a lot of the Pleasant Company outfits, especially like the Christmas outfits and stuff, is how much taffeta they used. Because in my mind's eye, when I was looking at them in the catalogs as a kid, I always pictured these dresses being thicker and more velvety. And I don't know, I just feel like this feels like rain slicker material to me. So whether it's historically accurate or not, I couldn't tell you. But I do, yeah, I guess I've gotten used to it over the years, but I just feel like this would be that much nicer if it was actually made with velvet or something a little bit, I don't know, just like a higher quality material. But anyway, yeah, I'm dumping out the Noah's Ark set here. And this one is a completely complete first edition mint sealed one. So everybody's going to be in their little baggies stapled in today, but we'll have a look at them anyway. So let me go ahead and get her fashion doll out of its bag as well. I don't know if y'all care about the product codes on all of these, but again, ECAD for her fashion doll, which is Felicity Christmas Accessories doll. And her Noah's Ark set is Felicity ECAP for Felicity Christmas Accessories. Probably play if I had to guess, or maybe present. So anyway, we'll leave this here for a second. But Felicity's Christmas outfit had a bit of like a little bit of a gimmick with it. It had sort of like this quick change kind of feature for her stomacher, which I always thought that was such a weird word, stomacher. It's stuck with me all of these years. But this piece that's basically like on the bodice of her outfit. So again, this is all pretty much completely made out of taffeta, but it's interestingly made. So it's got this skirt that's basically a separate, it's a common fabric that, or like pattern that they use for Felicity's skirts. They did the same thing with her school outfit. So basically same exact pattern for her school skirt for this blue taffeta skirt here. And then we have sort of this almost jacket-like piece that goes over top of it that connects with snaps via this stomacher. So if you look at the alternative version that came with it, you can see how it has 3 snaps up and down each side. And that's basically how you closed the entire thing. And it all is nice and concealed, so you don't see any of like the closures or anything, which I think is really great. Anytime we can avoid using Velcros, I am a happy camper, because Velcro usually ends up in things getting snagged. So in addition to this outfit, we have this very delicate, tiny little satin ribbon bow necklace with a little teardrop pearl hanging off of it, and the world's most frustrating clasp. The 1991 version, which is what this one is, has this very, like, you probably can picture it without me having to pull it out, but it basically is one of those clasps that's really, really tiny, and you basically twist it together. It's threaded and it's very annoying to put on, but I did it for the video today. And then on top of that, we have a cap that goes on top that I always think looks like grandma's drink coaster, so she doesn't spill coffee on the coffee table. So yeah, you can see here, it looks like you can rest a drink right on top of her head. But I love this outfit. It looks so much like the illustrations from Felicity's Surprise. I'm looking right here because you can see the book in the spread. This is the one that I used to use this one all the time, because again, it just sort of had more of a like cohesive color story. And in addition to that, it's what was pictured in the catalog and shown on the book cover. But I've kind of taken a liking to this little pop of burgundy here. And in addition to that, I've actually used the incorrect ribbon basically from her school story. And I promise it's not because I was being lazy and didn't want to tie another bow, but I think the burgundy ribbon actually looks really good with this stomacher. So I think that's kind of a way of tying all of this together. And maybe if you had her garters on, you know, just one more pop of burgundy. But interestingly, Felicity's Christmas outfit did not come with a hair ribbon, at least in the early editions. Later on, they would add a matching satin, like double-sided satin blue ribbon. And this is an official one. So again, I made replicas of these that are quite similar. But yeah, I thought in the spirit of making things a little bit fun, I would keep the burgundy ribbon on, because like I said, I just think it looks good with this version of the stomacher. But yeah, the hair ribbon does not come with the original set. So if you see one with a 1991 tag and a hair ribbon in there, it's not original to the set. So likewise, if you're trying to buy one from like 91, maybe 92, I can't remember what year they added it, but the earliest ones are not going to have this ribbon. So it is still complete if you have one with a 1991 tag and no hair ribbon. So anyway, we'll quickly look at her Noah's Ark set because this is a true first edition from 1991 as well. This one had one change mainly made to it, and that's how you know that this one is a first edition. The very first ones had this blue stripe along the bottom, which you can actually see pictured. You'll never see it on camera because it's so dark in the catalog, but there's this blue stripe along the bottom. Most of these that you see are not going to have this blue at the bottom. It actually looks better without it. It looks a little bit choppy and broken up with this extra blue stripe. So they ended up taking it off pretty much immediately. Again, these first editions are going to have that blue stripe on the bottom. And one way of spotting early stuff is they're going to have these generic stickers on the bottom. Now, by this time, they were making Pleasant Company, like tiny little Pleasant Company gold foil stickers to put on things. So it doesn't mean it's not a first edition if you see something with it, but certain things did have these generic stickers on here, and her Ark was one of them. So this is a really fun set. You can flip up the roof here, and I think maybe they were meant to like go up here and like look out the little portholes or whatever. So they went in there, and again, these obviously come out of these plastic bags, but they still have the original like little miniature staples in here. So I'm not going to disturb that because I don't display this set with all these pieces out. And one of these days I will get one that's opened and played with that I can actually display everything properly. But for now, I just have one set and it's pretty much completely mint. Maybe the box has like a ding or two on it, but I swear I saw one animal in here that's been open. Let me see. No, maybe not. So in true Noah's Ark form, we have two of every animal. So we've got like two horsies, we've got two camels, we've got two elephants, two little piggies, two, I don't know if these are sheep or lamb. I'm not really a farm person. And then two people. I don't know where they put all the mosquitoes and lizards and stuff, but I guess this is the abridged version. So yeah, the main storage compartment on this is actually, oh yeah, there's one extra piece that I've got in here is this ladder. I guess this is to get them up into the boat. So I guess they don't get murdered or whatever the story is. So yeah, they have this like basically main storage compartment here. So if you take the lid off, you can fit, when the animals are not in their bags suffocating to death, you can put them all in here and like store them that way, which is like a really fun little thing to do. But anyway, yeah, that's her Noah's Ark set. We'll put this right here. I guess we'll do this like this, even though this is most definitely gonna fall before this segment is over with. But there, how cute is that? All right, next up is one of the more rare sets in Felicity's collection. I think you'll start to sense the theme of anything that was like a crafty kind of thing that you had to actually make something with, whether it was sewing or baking or whatever. Anything that sort of had something that was meant to be used, they tend to be rare. I don't know if people didn't want to spend a lot of money on things that were sort of ephemeral, and so they're rare because many people didn't purchase them, or if it's just that people got them and they got destroyed over the years. But her Shrewsbury Cakes kit is probably the rarest thing we're looking at on screen right now. This can be really tough to find, and I know they made it for like several years. It wasn't just like a one-year exclusive thing, but because it was basically, I think, meant to be a little craft project, it's got a recipe on here, which basically tells you how to make the cakes that you're supposed to make for this kit. Again, this is a piece that can be kind of hard to find because it's just like a tiny little piece of textured paper. But it came with these adorable little cookie cutters, or four of them. We have a star, sort of like a scalloped clover looking thing. We have a heart and a crescent moon. And I don't think these have ever been out of this bag, so they're just going to live in here forever. But they were basically meant to stamp out the cookies that you ended up making. And we have this sugar cone in here, which is really interesting. This is the piece that's so hard to find because it's literally sugar in the shape of a funnel or a cone or whatever, and wrapped in blue paper and sealed with a sticker that has Felicity's insignia on it, which is this like tulip looking flower thing that we see like on parts of her collection. I think her books have this as her symbol, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is real life edible sugar, and I've seen these open before. So basically, if you unwrapped this, which I'm not going to do because it's in really, really good shape, but if you take the paper off, there's basically like a sugar cone inside that's shrink wrapped in plastic. So yeah, probably still edible to this day. I don't know that sugar like actually spoils or whatever. So even though this is like 30 something years old, you probably could still eat it. I wouldn't recommend it. And then in addition, we have this really cute, I don't know, I guess this is supposed to be like a table runner. It probably says on the pamphlet and I'm too lazy to read it. But we have a copyright 1991 tag. Again, this is already hard to find with any year tag on it, but to have this complete with a 1991 copyright is really rare. And this is one of the hardest items in my collection to find. I have to say, we're going to look at a few things because Felicity's collection was kind of weird like that. She was really, really popular, but for some reason, she had just a few things in her collection that people just didn't buy as much, I guess, and they are really, really hard to find, especially first year. We're going to see some really rare items in a minute, but yeah, it was all meant to be tucked away in this nice little basket that has a generic Made in China sticker on the bottom, and there's a random Made in China sticker in here that I'm guessing probably went on the bag for the cookie cutters, and it fell off, and I'm just going to leave it there. So anyway, kind of quickly reassemble this so it looks pretty on screen while we look at probably my favorite accessory from her Christmas collection, which is her fashion doll. We're going to leave this out because it's going to tumble if I don't. All of the Christmas stories for the Pleasant Company characters involved the character getting a doll in one form or another. Spoiler alert. So Samantha had Clara, Kirsten had Sorry, Molly had that like creepy nurse doll that they ended up revamping the following year, and Felicity got a fashion doll with an invitation to some event that I forgot what it was. Put that over there so those don't get mixed up, because I have that like collector brain that even though these were made probably exactly at the same time in the same run, this one came with this one and this one came with this one, and if they get mixed up it'll make me crazy. But anyway, like I said, these sets are complete, pamphlet, tissue paper, and everything. So anyway, I have the completely complete first edition version of her fashion doll. Now, I do have another one of these floating around somewhere that I use just for display because these are kind of delicate. They're made out of wood and they had a couple of really small, delicate pieces that went with them. So this is the original first edition fashion doll with really big, chunky feet. And it's so fun because it's basically like Felicity's doing the dress like your doll thing. And you could actually buy, might even be advertised here. Yeah. As of 1991, you could buy the child size version of this outfit. So you could do like a full Inception, like dress your kid up like Felicity, dress Felicity up like Felicity. And then obviously this fashion doll has the same outfit, but I'm gonna try and be really careful. I know this is really rude to do, but it's a doll at the end of the day. You can see here how this doll is jointed. She is completely made out of wood from head to toe. So her joints and everything are made with wood. And you can see if you look really carefully, it almost looks like her feet were dipped in white paint to basically give the impression of stockings, and dipped one more time to put little like pink shoes on her. But yeah, these original ones at least were completely made out of wood and they're hinged. So you can actually like do the can if you want to. But yeah, this is, like I said, a completely complete one because not only does it have the actual invitation with the originally tied satin red ribbon on the front. This is so hard to find in the secondhand market because these got lost so often, obviously, and especially to find one from 1991 that has this, really extremely rare. And in addition to that, I do have the original tiny little bouquet of flowers. I don't know if it was meant to be like a brooch or just a little extra accessory, but this is the most common thing to be missing from this set. These little tiny little pink flowers that are pictured in the catalog. If you look really, really closely, like basically tucked under her right arm, you have those tiny little pink flowers. So they're meant to be like this. Watch me lose this while we're filming today, but it's basically meant to be just like that. And like I said, if you really want to complete one, it's got to have that. But a small detail, but a detail nonetheless if you're a collector and you have to have absolutely everything. But yeah, I think this is so darling. I love the original version of this because it looks so homemade. It reminds me of like Miss Hickory. Remember the, I think it was a book or something like that. I just remember Miss Hickory from being a kid, and she was like this handmade doll, and her like she had a hickory nut for a head, and I think she like became sentient or something. Probably incredibly creepy, but I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of that because it looks like her head was made with like a wooden thimble. But yeah, very homemade and beautiful looking. And of course, like all of these tiny hand painted details. This was not printed in a factory. This was actually somebody sat down with likely a paintbrush and just painted all of these details down to the blushing on her cheeks. And I just think this is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful detail from Felicity's Christmas collection. And she's certainly my favorite piece in the Christmas collection. Interestingly, the Christmas collections did not have furniture associated with them. Not every collection had furniture as part of the catalog spreads. So the dolls got desks, and a lot of times they were released later on, not always, but the dolls got desks added to their collections. And the only other furniture, at least for the most part, that they got were typically birthday tables. And then in addition to that, they got beds and trunks and like nighttime, like bedtime furniture. So things like their Christmas stories and their summer and winter stories didn't come with furniture that was designed to go with those collections. And again, I don't think any of the Christmas collections, to the best of my knowledge, off the top of my head right now, had furniture associated with them, unless somebody like later on, like Kit or somebody got them. But yeah, as far as I can remember, nobody got furniture as part of their Christmas collections. All right, I think the light's getting a little bit low, and I want to be sure you can see every single detail. So I'm going to take a break for today, but I'll see you literally in half a second when we look at Felicity's birthday collection. All right, we're doing a little bit of a jump in time because I actually thought I was going to be able to get Felicity's birthday table in time for filming this video, and I have not. So that's one of the main things that you're not going to see today. In a very much complete collection that is almost mostly complete, we are missing, I think, one of the more exciting things in Felicity's collection for this video, which is a bummer. So I guess we will refilm this at a later date next year when I have absolutely everything. But I really, really tried. But at the same time, I have a firm rule of not buying furniture for dolls unless it is forever furniture. It is such a pain to pack and ship and sell that I will not buy something as a placeholder. So I'm waiting on my perfect 1992 Felicity table to come to me. I don't have a whole lot of time. I've been trying to find one before moving to Australia, so I don't have to pay like $100 to have it shipped overseas, but that might just be how it has to go. But anyway, yeah, it's a little bit of jump in time. I don't know how many filters I'm going to put on this video to cover up my freckles, but yeah, there's a big red mark on my nose. It's not a zit. Although if it were, that wouldn't be a big deal, obviously. I don't really get zits that much anymore. But if you must know, I am trying sleeping with Breathe Right strips on to see if that helps get more oxygen in my body in the middle of the night. So maybe I have fewer migraines. I don't know. I haven't had migraines since it started, but I've only been doing it for 4 days. But yeah, it's messed my nose up. So yeah, I guess ho ho ho, Merry Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Okay, anyway, so I have her entire birthday collection other than that. And the funny thing is some of these things are actually harder to find than the table and chairs. It's just, like I said, I want a perfect 1992 set. So first up, we have Felicity in her birthday outfit, which is actually one of my favorites in her entire collection. I know I say this about everything. I wouldn't say it's my absolute favorite. There are definitely some things we're going to look at later on in this video that I would say I like better than this, but this is one of my favorite birthday outfits they ever made because it is so pretty. It's a really lovely shade of pink. It's sort of like a rose pink. And then we've got this really crisp white inner apron that goes over top of it with one of the most beautiful floral patterns I think I've ever seen in doll clothes. I think the scale on it is really, really good. And you can see just like looking at it from the distance that you're seeing it, how it's a small, delicate, almost ditzy pattern, but you can still see that there are flowers. I think this is the perfect scale flower for a doll outfit. So I really, really love this set. And it is complete. I do have this funny little like faux flower headband that you tie around her head. Maybe it's supposed to be offset to the side, but you know, maybe I messed it up. But this can be a little odd looking. And it does come with socks. We will see the socks later in the video, but I am not like messing up her birthday socks and possibly wrecking her shoes to try and put those big old thick socks on. So normally she has blue socks with really gorgeous floral embroidery up the sides, but you're just gonna have to use your imagination today. And they're not really like that visible anyway. So sorry, I did cheap out on that, but I really tried hard today, but you know, I'm not a perfect person. So anyway, I did end up keeping her burgundy ribbon in her hair because I think it looks really great with this set as well. It sort of draws out some of the pinks and reds in her outfit, plus with this sick guitar that she likes to shred on. It matches her guitar strap. Now, I would not consider this a guitar. This looks more like a baritone ukulele to me. It's got 4 strings and not 6. I tried to quickly Google because, you know, I don't know a ton about guitar history like before, 1990, but a quick Google search says that they had like 6 and like 10 string guitars in the colonial era. So yeah, this, I guess we'll just consider an abstraction in the way that like the Simpsons have 4 fingers instead of 5. I guess we have 4 guitar strings instead of 6, but yeah, this, like, I guess you theoretically could tune this. It's got probably nickel strings on here. The fun thing is that these actually look like proper guitar strings, just scaled down. They've got the like all the same anatomy of a guitar string, and so these are probably steel strings. Sorry, I mean nickel strings. I'm so used to saying steel because I play the guitar. I have for most of my life, and my like body chemistry reacts weirdly with nickel, and my fingers turn black when I play normal nickel wound guitar strings, so I have to get steel wound guitar strings. So anyway, without getting into all of that, this is Felicity's gorgeous miniature guitar that she probably likes to play doll parts or whatever the colonial equivalent of that is. God, can you imagine Courtney Love in the like 1700s? She absolutely would have been called a witch. Although to be fair, she gets called a witch to this day because people are misogynistic. I do love this piece. It looks really, really great with this entire set. I'm going to try and strap it back onto her. Hang on. I think Felicity's right-handed, so I need to put it on correctly. Yeah, there's probably... Yeah, you can tighten this strap. It's too loose. Like, it should be, like, about, like, here probably for her. So it's really loosey-goosey looking, but I think you get the idea. She looks like she's playing in, like, a 2000s pop-punk band. You know how they used to have their guitars, like, down at their knees? That was so silly looking. Anyway, this is not a guitar lesson. This is a doll tour. So what do we want to start with? I have all the accessories. I guess we'll start with the big thing that's in my way. And we'll just kind of set up, I guess, a faux table on my table. I almost busted out Addie's table and chairs, but I thought it would look really weird to, like, I don't know. I really do not like mixing historical eras. You will pretty much never find me switching, like putting a Felicity outfit on Molly. Like, that would make me insane. So yeah, I don't do that. And so I feel like putting Addie's table and chairs with Felicity's stuff would look really jarring and odd to me. So this is a first edition from 1992 chocolate set. I think they've called it. It's EBAC, which I think is basically Felicity Birthday Accessories China. All of the dolls got basically some sort of like dishes set that came with their birthday collections, where you have like plates, cups, napkins, cutlery, often some sort of like pitcher or jug. And because we aren't looking at a super complete setup today, I'm going to go ahead and leave my forks, knives, and spoons in their original box, but you can see, or in their original bag, but you can see here again, super duper original. We've got the product code and everything on here. So at some point, I think once I get my table, I'm going to buy a replacement set for these so I can leave these minty in the bag. So we're going to leave them just like that. We've got these really adorable plates. Again, they have the Pleasant Company logo stamped on the bottom and the original stickers. We have these little mugs that look very, very delicate, and I feel like they could break. They're a very interesting shade of butter yellow with red flowers and green vines on them, but they are definitely made out of what I think is porcelain, so very breakable. Same with the plates. We're still in very early Pleasant Company, so everything is made with real life adult grade materials. So we'll just gingerly place those there. Almost forgot this little stick that's hiding in here. I guess this is to like stir the chocolate in the, what is this called? I think we can just call it a pitcher. I know it has a name. Maybe it'll be on the pamphlet. Let's look. They just called it a gleaming silver chocolate pot. So I'm just gonna guess this is basically hot chocolate. I really like this pot. It's made out of proper silver. Let me get the box out of the way. Actually, should we use the box as the table? That might make a little bit of sense at least. I know this is so disappointing. It's disappointing to me too, as well. I have to say, I really, really love Felicity's furniture, including her like flip top table with the chairs, but it just hasn't made its way to me. And I really tried to collect as responsibly as possible, even though I've been really irresponsible at times. I just, you know, like I said, with furniture, I really need to make sure that I want to keep it forever when I buy it. So yeah, here's her little makeshift table as if she's just moved into a new house and the furniture hasn't arrived yet. But yeah, I love this chocolate pot because it's really interestingly made. The handle on it is not directly parallel to the spout. So it's at like a 90-degree angle, which I think is like, I don't know. Is that? Yeah, it's not as ergonomic, I don't think, but it's really cool. This one has patinaed because it is actual silver and you can polish them. I have a backup one that's a little bit more polished that I can grab. I polished this several months ago and it's already starting to tarnish again, but this is one that I just ended up with randomly as a spare part. And I'm just going to leave this one probably completely patinaed. And then this one for my display, I'll probably get it like nice and polished. I might even put a lacquer on it just to keep it nice and bright and shiny. So anyway, this is a complete tableware set. I'll just put this here, but it has all these extra little parts, like this little stopper here. The top flips up, and it's definitely its original color on the inside because it hasn't been exposed to the elements the same way the outside has. And you can even see on the bottom, it has the original sticker stating, says it's made by International Silver Co. maybe, I don't know, but that's what a first edition looks like on the bottom. No Pleasant Company sticker on the bottom of this. So this is a really cute set. And again, I just love these like extra details, like the floral details. It's very, very fussy, as you would expect from a colonial table setup. What else do we have here? Oh, this is just the box for the guitar. This was kind of difficult to find. The product code on it is EBAG, Felicity Birthday Accessories Guitar, I think. So yeah, this is what the guitar came in. True first edition from 92. It's really, really hard to find them in this burgundy box because these did not stick around for very much longer than when this set was released. This box, I guess, would be Posey the Lamb. Yeah, so EBAA, the A stands for animal, I think. So pretty much every Pleasant Company character got a pet as part of their birthday stories. So like Molly has Bennett and Kirsten has her kittens. Felicity got, actually Samantha didn't get a pet. She just got a teddy bear, but Felicity ended up getting a lamb. I haven't gotten to this story yet because I am reading through Felicity's books, but I haven't gotten to her birthday book yet. So I don't know how this lamb showed up in her life. I'm sure it's a very interesting story that I will learn very shortly, but this is adorable. Again, a true first edition with this burgundy box with the belt and the product code on it. I'm really proud of this one. This one's actually also kind of difficult to find. So I'm going to be really careful with the box, putting it back together and putting it away. That's one thing I loved about these birthday collections is there are so many pieces in them. I think they're the ones that had the most pieces as part of their story. It's just like details on details on details, including her party treats, which again are in the original EBAP box. These, again, like the rest of them, are very, very hard to find in the original packaging in this condition. So try and carefully take this box band off and we'll look at the pieces in here. I think some of them are still in the original bag, so we might not take them all the way out because I do think it's important to preserve these things as they originally existed because they're so rare. It's so hard to find ones that are packaged in the original packaging. And if everybody opens them, then we have no concept of what these actually looked like back in the day. So I'm gonna try and like very gently angle this upwards. I know that all of this is gonna fall out of here if I'm not careful, but this was put together pretty precariously. A lot of the early Fragile stuff was just stuck in the same boxes that everything else came in with just a little bit of extra cardboard to kind of wedge everything in, but it does like to fall out. So I'm going to try and be really, really careful. We've got her flower bouquet wrapped in wax paper with Felicity's little tulip insignia on the front. And then we have the Made in China sticker on the back. We'll just put these here. So we're probably not going to take those out and put them in this vase. This is a really interesting vase. Again, I'll probably just pick up a backup set of this because this is pretty minty. I don't want to mess it up. I might just find a cheaper set from, the mid 90s that looks more or less the same so I can put my proper tablescape together. We have this bundt cake that is, I guess, meant to go on one of these cake pedestals, but I need to get the rest of the stuff out first. We have these tiny little, I think they're ceramic, little pieces of fruit and berries. That's, I guess, meant to adorn the cake. We have this really cute porcelain figurine that looks like something out of your grandma's house. It's still wrapped up in the original bag, so it's going to have to stay in here for today's video. I promise you the rest of this video, like pretty much everything else, is unboxed on dolls, and you're going to see the furniture. Like, we have a lot of really awesome stuff to look at, so I don't want you to be disappointed this early in the video because this really is like the one thing that I felt like let the video down by not having, because it would have been really cool to see the table, but I do have all of the other furniture, and like I said, you're about to see some really, really cool pieces. So hang in there if you're a little bit annoyed about not having the proper table for this. Again, my apologies, but I just, like I said, I am not buying furniture that's not going to stay with me forever. And also, if I buy something as a temporary to take to Australia, I'll never be able to sell it. There's so few people that actually collect American Girl there, so being able to sell stuff like that, I think is going to be pretty much impossible now. So yeah, I have to be really, really picky, as if I'm not already super picky. So we have one glass cake pedestal that we'll put right here. These are actually wedged in pretty good, I have to say. And we have this other cake pedestal that I'm going to put the bundt cake on really quickly. These little pieces of fruit, I think these do come out. You know what? I'll take them out for the video. Just try not to lose them, but this has actually been opened, I think, once before. So we're good there. So why not? I think you're just supposed to like delicately place them on like this. I feel like this needs some sort of like whipped cream or something, but I don't even think you can see this as I'm doing it. I've got like the flour base in the way. So we'll just kind of quickly put the rest of them on here. This looks low key pretty good actually. We have actually one more accessory set that I almost completely forgot about. It's one that just sort of always slips my mind, and I just kind of incidentally got it to complete the collection. But we have this really interesting, like, wooden needlework kit. There were a few different things that Pleasant Company sold that were basically meant to teach children how to like cross stitch and stuff, but this was one of them. And I'll be honest, I haven't like fully figured out how this works because I've been trying to just like look after it and make sure it stays minty, but got these little compartments here. You have this like spool here, I guess, that's meant to be your like thread reserve. And this is again a 1992 mint first edition set, and it's all still in its original packaging here. So I've got the 1775 Faithful Friends Forever Be template. So this is just like a piece of basically cotton with the template printed on here, and you're meant to cross stitch this. I will never do that, like ever, ever, ever. And interestingly, while I am thinking about it, the later versions, I think they darkened the fabric. I think the first edition versions from 1992 were like basically a bright white fabric, and then they ended up making them more of a burlap kind of color. So anyway, I picked this up for pretty cheap just for the display because I do actually think the darker one looks better. But anyway, we'll set that there, and we'll set this, I guess, here like that. And all of the accessories that came with this, we still have like everything, like the thread, and there are two thimbles. Let me see if I can take this out of here and show you a little bit better. But we've got child size and Felicity sized thimbles, if you can see here, which obviously I will never use. Felicity will probably never use either. I wouldn't be surprised if this thimble would stain her thumb if it was left on there for long periods of time. So this will just be decoration on the shelf at some point. But yeah, this is a complete needlework set for Felicity's birthday. Again, I guess this was one of her gifts or crafts or whatever. I do have one of the pamphlets here, so you can kind of see how this would look if I had the table. And it will look like this before long. If for some reason I get the table before this video goes up, I will quickly throw everything together and do some B-roll and show you. But if you're not seeing a table right now, that means I didn't get it before this video went up. But yeah, that really would bring all of this together. I have to say, it looks like a jumbled mess right now on the screen. So again, my apologies. I know that this would have been a lot more exciting with that table, but you'll see it in the very near future, something tells me. All right, that's Felicity's birthday collection. I'm going to go ahead and put this stuff away, and we're going to look at her summer and winter stories. All right, here we are now, move into the summer story. So this one was a particularly difficult collection to collect. Felicity's summer story is beautiful, although maybe a little bit problematic. Beautiful and very, very rare, especially to get first editions from 1992 when this was first released. So like her birthday story, this is one that was released the following year after the original doll was released. So we got book number 5 in her story for Felicity Saves the Day. Now I am currently in the process of rereading Felicity's books for the first time in over 30 years. So I can't remember all the details from it. I am going to be reading it shortly, but I'm on kind of a weird schedule for, for reasons we discussed earlier. So while it would have been ideal to read her entire book collection before doing this, we will discuss it shortly in another video. But anyway, like I said, today we're focusing on the actual dolls and their collections. On Patreon, we're focusing on the catalogs. And then in a future episode, we're going to focus on Felicity's stories in their entirety. So here I have Felicity dressed in her summer story outfit. Now, this was 2 separate products. Originally, I think they ended up combining them after a few years, but in 1992, originally, you had to buy the hat and the brocade shoes as a separate item. So they were boxed, and I actually put my boxes away, but I think we saw them in a previous video. But yeah, this is 2 separate items, the hat and the shoes, and then the dress with the sash was sold separately, along with this, I don't know if this is called a mob cap, but this lacy cap that goes under here, that was also part of this outfit. So if we take her hat off, this is what she would have looked like if you had only bought her dress. And I honestly have to say, I feel like the hat is what makes this outfit. It is incredibly well made. It's human quality, in my opinion. It's sort of like a braided straw that's, I don't know, it's basically like a really nice table like placemat that you might have gotten at Pier 1 back in the day. But I really love the way this is made. It's got this gorgeous sort of like cornflower blue or almost like a periwinkle color ribbon. And we have some faux flowers on the top. And it just looks so incredibly beautiful, just plonked right on top of her head like this. I mean, I know it's very old fashioned looking, but I just love how incredibly flat this hat is. When I was putting this together last night before starting this video, my partner was like, did somebody roll over her hat with a steamroller? But I think it's chic. And if you could see the top of my head right now, you'd probably argue that I need a hat like this as well. So anyway, I will say this is probably one of the more plain outfits that Pleasant Company made. I think it's like right up there with Molly's birthday outfit. But when you take this sash off, this is pretty much a basic white dress with a little bit of trim. But I think this is like a really like understated elegance. I think when everything is pulled together and you have these like little pops. I tried to not say pop of color. It's such a corny thing to say, but I mean, it's what it is. These like tiny little pops of periwinkle cornflower blue, I think really tie it all together. So interestingly, this is actually one of my favorite outfits for Felicity because of how understated it is. I just think all of the details are absolutely perfect. Well, all details but one. While I love these brocade shoes, I think they are so incredibly gorgeous, and they really are brocade. This isn't printed on there. You can actually look, and they use different colors of threads to make the fabric that these are made out of. The soles on these shoes do not like to stay on. Felicity's shoes are notorious for breaking, at least the early ones, because the glue crumbled over the years. And I definitely have several pairs of Felicity's shoes that have broken just by trying to gently put them on the doll. In fact, even last night, I broke a pair. If you can see here, these are just like this sole like popped right off, and I was being so careful because I knew that these come off so easily. So I generally, like if I'm just dressing the doll for a display or trying to change things up seasonally or whatever, I almost never put these shoes on Felicity because you're pretty much guaranteed the sole is going to pop off, and it's just very annoying. I think I have about 3 pairs of these shoes in my possession, so I took the risk for the video, but just know that she only has these shoes on because I'm filming today, and I really wanted to show you exactly what these collections looked like and were meant to. That being said, I am pretty sure in this catalog photo that's on the brochure, if you really, really look closely, they have her meat socks on. It's about 3 pixels worth of information, but if you look at the catalog picture, they do have those really thick woolen meat socks on her before putting those shoes on. And I'm just going to tell you, if you have an original Felicity with really thick wool socks, do not even bother trying to put these brocade shoes over top of those socks. It's hard enough with her bare feet. So I get that this looks a little bit goofy to not have socks on. It is summer, but that said, after riding a horse for about 15 minutes, these feet are probably going to get really stinky. So yeah, in real life, maybe we would have some light socks. And I get this looks goofy, but yeah, these are really, really fiddly shoes, as you might imagine for a colonial child. But between the soles popping off and these satin bows not wanting to stay tied, like these are very, very finicky. And who knows if I'll ever put these shoes on Felicity ever again. But boy, does it look good in photos. And another thing I did too that I don't typically do is I tried to leave her shift on underneath it as well, because Felicity's underwear was basically just a shift dress. And for some outfits, it's really, really awkward to use. And this is one of them. I really had to struggle to get the Velcro on the back attached because that shift under there added so much extra bulk. So normally I don't leave the shift on there, but I thought, you know what, for today, that's what we're going to do just so we can see what it was meant to look like. But yeah, this sash belt that comes with it is basically just a really beautiful ribbon. I don't have it tied because it's pretty much perfectly mint. So typically when I put Felicity in her summer outfit, I will just use, wow, this is a mess of bows on the back, but I will typically just use a bobby pin to kind of just pinch it together, if you will. You're like meant to tie it in a bow, but that puts wrinkles in things. And if I can avoid wrinkles, I will, because as you can see, generally don't like to bust out the iron or the steamer, but I think she looks pretty good. These things get really, really wrinkly. They're cotton and they're pretty thin. So if you don't hang them up or store them really carefully, this stuff gets super wrinkly, but I think she looks pretty good for today. Like I said, it's a super duper simple outfit, but I think it's really, really elegant. And I try to get her in it every year, at least for a little while, because it's just so summery and breezy. And I would say effortless, but let's say maybe from here down, it's effortless, but this hat is a choice. All right, there's no furniture for Felicity's summer story, but there are 2 incredibly difficult to find play sets that came with her summer collection. The first being her plantation play set. And I know, like, right off the bat that that is a problematic concept and a problematic title. So we'll just call them her summer accessories from now on. So anyway, this set has a lot of pieces. They have a lot of breakable pieces, and yeah, just about everything in here, like if you look at it wrong, will break, and we'll go through every little piece. Let me tell you, I had to pay like hundreds of dollars for this because this is in its original packaging, pretty much mint and complete. So here's the summer pamphlet again. By 1992, they were starting to roll out the new version of the packaging. So this set very quickly started being sold in the white boxes. So this version of this box for this set is incredibly hard to come by. I don't think they made very many of them. And when they changed the packaging, they also changed the pamphlets. So in 1992, like later on in the year, they started putting the burgundy borders around the outside. So this is a true 1992 copyright borderless pamphlet for Felicity's summer story, which is quite difficult to acquire in itself. And again, as I mentioned before, this is the original box that this came in. The product code on it is EAAS, and I have never been able to figure out exactly what each of those letters stands for. I do know that E is for Felicity and A represents the summer story, but I always guessed that it's adventure is what the letter A is for. They obviously couldn't use the letter S because they'd already used it for school. So like ES would mean Felicity School. So for whatever reason, they picked A for the summer stories. And then the second A, I guess, is accessories. And then S, no idea. And I'm probably about to completely misname every single thing in here, but we're going to try going through every little piece. So this is a makeshift letter from the apprentice Ben saying that he needs Felicity's help for something. I guess some of you are probably going to spoil it in the comments for me, but maybe I'll try and get the book read before this video goes up. But anyway, this is still in the original plastic bag and completely stapled shut, which is really cool. I do have a backup one of these actually so that I can display it not in the plastic bag. That's typically what I'll do if I have something perfectly mint. I like to preserve these things just so we always have some sort of physical document of what these things actually looked like in their first years. So I don't like taking these out because they're so rare. I mean, who knows how many of these are actually still in existence, perfectly mint like this. So if this is what my collection has, like, I will go in and buy a second one just, you know, as a spare part from somebody else that I can use to display so I don't have to look at the plastic bag. Next up, we have a game of, I don't know if they call it badminton in the book, but we have two badminton rackets, and this one even has the original Pleasant Company gold sticker on it, which again, it's hard enough to find these not broken. And I actually think later on, like a few years later, they ended up only selling one racket and not two, interestingly. I'm nearly certain they did that, but yeah, that's a tiny little racket. I can imagine that she did not hit the what I think is called a shuttlecock. I think they call it a battledore or something. I don't know if the battledore is the racket or if that's the thing you're hitting, but either way, I don't think they use the word shuttlecock. I know it's in this box. I'm just trying to be really careful and not rip the box because it's pretty much mint condition. It even has the Made in the Philippines original sticker on it, but I'm really struggling to get this open. I know I have an extra set of this that I'm about to sell, but I'm too lazy to go in the other room and grab it. But I did get this open. I've taken this out of here before just to check that it wasn't broken, but this thing is so delicate. It's made with actual feathers and a cork. Good Lord. I'm really scared I'm going to break it, but it's basically a cork ball with, you know what? I'm not taking it out. You can see that it's in here, proof that I have it. I'm going to go grab one from my sale pile so you can actually see what it looks like. This was the original set that I used to own, and I finally found one with a box band and just a little bit extra packaging. So I'm about to sell this one because it's a duplicate for me, but it's still in overall like pretty excellent shape. But you know me, I strive for perfection. Well, at least with the collection. I guess perfection for the collection and nothing else. But this is what I think is the battledore. And again, it's just like this little cork ball with feathers stuck in it. I'm guessing that's meant to be historically accurate and incredibly delicate. We'll just stick that over there. So that's what's in this box, and I will probably just leave this in here forever. I've got enough things to display. Actually, that said, I bet if I opened it from the bottom, I could probably pull it out that way easier. We'll see what the future holds for the battledore. Next up, we have just randomly this whistle. I think it's probably long enough to go around her neck and probably would make a nice accessory for this overall, like, fairly simple outfit. But like the necklace part is like this leather cording, and it feels like it might break if I pull on it. So I would probably just need to buy an extra one to use that I don't care about getting messed up. But yeah, I feel like I'm trying to hide the sticker. This is being so stubborn. But yeah, I think this would look cute on this outfit just as an extra accessory, but not today, Satan. Next up, we have this bird bottle, and I guess this was meant to like trap birds. Again, this, I looked at the pamphlet and the extra like ephemera that came with it, and it didn't explain how this works. Maybe it does in the catalog, but this does have the original sticker if I can manage to keep it on there. And I'm guessing this was like a way to trap birds, maybe. It's what it seems like to me anyway. It's interesting. It has this like hole in the back of it as well. But anyway, it comes with this like tiny little bird. Again, mine still has the sticker on it. This is a completely untouched set. And it's got this little, if you can see, it's like a rubbery clear straw on the bottom. And you're meant to basically slide it along this wooden skewer here so the bird can perch right there. But I am scared of breaking this, so I'm not going to be doing that. But you can see here that like there's like a bunch of like wood sticks in here, and this one is meant to go in this little hole right here and into the jar like that. Like these were custom made for this. Wasn't just some random functioning jug. So yeah, if you know in the comments, let me know why there's a hole on the bottom back here and what this is actually for. I can't figure out if it's like to trap birds or not. But anyway, and then we have this pottery piece here that is very likely made by Row Pottery. Not sure. But yeah, this sort of terracotta colored jar or jug, I guess. Then we have the reed and shell, which I think is, you know, it's interesting how many extra pieces were in here. But, you know, I guess there wasn't TV and video games back in the colonial days. So kids had to like, I guess, make up their own TV and video games by putting soap in a shell and using this reed to like blow in it, which I'm obviously not going to do that. But yeah, you're meant to like, this is like actually for kids to use. They have like a recipe for how to make bubbles if you don't want to go buy any. Like apparently you spent all your money on Pleasant Company dolls and you can't afford to buy like 25-cent bubbles at the store. But anyway, you're meant to fill this with like bubble solution and then just like blow into this essentially like wooden straw to make bubbles in a shell. I don't think I would have done well as a colonial child. But anyway, a fun thing about this is I do actually have the original instruction sheet for this as well. So again, this is a truly completely complete summer accessory set for Felicity. Very, very coveted for Felicity collectors. Like I said, this is really, really hard to obtain, even if you're trying to find just like a partially complete version from later in the 90s. But to get a true first edition, mint in the package and everything, this is incredibly difficult. This was one of the hardest things that I had to find for Felicity's collection, and it took me a few years, but I finally got my hands on one. And that's probably enough about this semi-problematic set, and we will move on to her rescue kit, which was the only other accessory set from Felicity's summer collection. This one has a product code EAAN. Again, we've kind of dissected how they got to that. I have no idea what N is for. I actually have two of these because my original one that's in here actually still has the flowers, like all these herbs and everything. They're actually still in the original bag. So this is technically my truly mint set. You can see here, it's like fully sealed too. So like I can't even get these out of the bag without destroying the mintiness of it. So just so you know, I do have a fully mint set. So don't come for me in the comments. Just kidding. I don't think anyone's doing that. But anyway, I do have two sets of this. This is one of the few things I'm going to keep a duplicate of. I'm trying to be really good and only have one of everything. So anything that can just come out of the box and go on a shelf, I'm only going to have one of. But certain things are going to have like properly sealed bags and stuff. And I just don't want to break the seals on them. So I need one to display. And I really love this set. I think it's really cool. It starts off with this gorgeous herb gathering basket, and it's a really nicely made one. Again, human quality materials. This is something you might see at your grandmother's house for decoration. So it's like this straw basket with this elegantly curved sort of like cradle, and it even has kind of like a pedestal foot underneath. And this one still has the original Pleasant Company sticker. This is an original 1992 set as well, but these flowers are really interesting. I tried to do a good job of like arranging them. I don't know if you can see super well, but I tried to make them all like wild and like, I don't know, billowing out the top I thought I did a good job, but you know, I might have mental illness. Next up, we have this. I don't know what this is called. I'm sure it says on the pamphlet, but this little leather pouch set. It's got these two pockets. It's very simply made, but it's basically like one long piece of leather that's sort of just like accordion folded inward, and then it turns into like a little pouch. Well, actually, is it? Well, it's not quite a long accordion, but it's close. Anyway, it's very simply made, and it's got these two little pockets on the inside in here that you're meant to basically, I guess you just put it under her arm like that if you want her to carry it, like it's a clutch purse, like she's going to the Met Gala. Gross. But we have all these little paper pieces in here. So, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here like trying to figure out what this is. Ben was 16 years old and he was 6 feet tall at 16. Jesus Christ, what was in the water? All right. Anyway, some like colonial nonsense on here. And then we've got, I think, a letter to Felicity from, oh, this is a letter from her friend Elizabeth, whom I haven't mentioned that yet in this video, but I am actively looking for Elizabeth. I just don't want to pay more than $100 for her. So I will eventually get her. I think she's a really cool doll. I love the Josefina head sculpt, but because she's Mattel era, it's not a super high priority for me. So one of these days I will find my perfect Elizabeth and they can be friends, even though she stole her name. And then anyway, we have a map here, presumably of somewhere in Colonial Williamsburg. These pieces are incredibly hard to find. And if you're trying to find this set and you're unsure, just ask the seller. If these aren't shown, a lot of times people don't realize that these are actually just tucked in here, because this is where I keep them and where they're meant to be stored, is in these like little pockets here, and they fit quite nicely. It just helps protect them and keeps them from getting lost. So sometimes if you just see only these like 3 things roughly, sometimes these little pieces of paper are tucked away in here. So always ask if you're looking to buy one of these and the papers aren't shown. And then finally, we have a mortar and pestle, which I'm guessing is meant to crush these herbs up. So this is made out of, I don't know, it tarnishes. It doesn't look like silver. It's too cool of a color, but it's some sort of tarnishing metal. I don't think steel tarnishes. So not entirely certain what this is made of. Maybe steel does tarnish. Is stainless steel a steel that doesn't patina and then just regular steel does? I don't know. Anyway, it's heavy. Look. You probably couldn't hear that because I use voice isolation for these videos, but yeah, this is like a proper like heavy metal pestle or mortar pestle. This is the mortar. So anyway, this is a like proper heavy duty mortar made out of solid metal, which is pretty cool. Again, the original Pleasant Company quality and typical Pleasant Company quality. We also have her pestle, which is made completely out of wood, and I think is a pretty good scale, I have to say. If we put it in her hand right there, yeah, I think she could do that, although I feel like it should be a little bit longer, although it might look like a baseball bat if they made it any longer. But anyway, that is Felicity's complete summer story collection. One that is definitely going to be the most challenging if you decide to collect a Pleasant Company Felicity collection. These 2 items here will be some of the most difficult to find because I don't think they were that popular. I don't think they made them for that many years, and they're obviously so delicate that many of the pieces got lost and broken. So these are definitely sort of like the main holy grails of a Felicity collection. I think they were some of the last things that I added. At least, you know, some things I added last because they were so common. I was just waiting to get super cheap ones, but these were definitely the hardest things to find in my Felicity collection, and I'm super proud of having like mint first editions of them. And hopefully now that you have some more information about them, maybe if you're after something similar, you might have a little bit easier of a time finding them now that you know what to look for. All right, let's move on to our winter story. All right, next up we have Felicity's winter story, and the winter story's got a little bit more stuff than the summer stories did. I'm not entirely sure why, but I guess there was just that whole idea of like layering and rugging up. So between coats and underwear and extra accessories and travel accessories, we got quite a few things for the winter stories. Now, that said, I think Felicity was the one that kind of got shortchanged just a little bit on her winter story outfit. The only thing that she got was this red cardinal cloak right here. It's very, very simply made. It's basically just like a gigantic circle with a pie shape cut out of it, like a little wedge. And then it's like sewn to a hood. It's very cute. It's very well made. It's super duper thick. This is like felt basically, but it's not like the felt you're thinking like at the craft store. It's very, very dense, and I don't know why. I just think this is like a pretty cute outfit despite being a little bit on the simplistic and cheap side, but this is what we got for Felicity. They have it paired with her Christmas outfit in the catalog, but on the stories, it looks like it's paired with a dress that's a little bit more similar to a dress that we're going to look at in a second, which is her work dress. I'm kind of wishing I had done that for this doll, but this is what we have right now. And again, I'll change her in a minute, and then maybe we'll see what she looks like with that combo too. So yeah, as far as the winter stories go, they got some sort of like jacket or cape or accessory, something along those lines. And then they got something sort of like an extra protection against the winter. So like Kirsten, for instance, had like her mittens and her hat and cardigan, and then Molly had her like umbrella and galoshes, and Felicity ended up getting a few like random odd things. We have these like, I've forgotten what they're called. Hang on. I swear all these colonial garments have all these like random names I can never remember. Let's see if it's on here. This says this is wool in here. Actually, now I'm sitting here reading this pamphlet. This seems like, I mean, I guess you can have felt made out of wool, but this seems synthetic to me. Maybe this is actual wool. I don't know, but it's meant to be like a wool cloak. Okay, so the little arm like warmer things are called mitts, even though they don't actually cover her hands. So I guess they're just meant to like keep her arms warm or whatever. And you can see here, I've got them both on because this set also came with the like the hand muff as well. So it has mitts, muff, and these are called pattens. These are probably hard to see, but I've got them over her meat shoes basically. And they're these little things that you strap to the bottoms of her shoes. They basically have wood soles and these like, they look like biscuit cutters to me because I'm like trash from the South, but they're basically like these little metal rings that you strap to the bottoms of her shoes so she can walk around in the snow and not get her shoes all nasty. As if Felicity cared. I've read some of her books and she seems like a bit of a dirtball to me. So anyway, so those three things are what came with that set. And if you look here, I always think this is so funny. I think this every time I look at these mitts here. This embroidered design on here looks like the cool S that we all used to draw in our notebooks in the 90s. Remember the thing? Like you draw the 6 lines and then connects. I mean, if you know, you know. But yeah, this definitely looks like the 90s cool S to me. These patents don't love staying on her shoes. Like this is all like official Pleasant Company merchandise. And I'm struggling to like get things on and keep them on and have her stand up. So if she takes a tumble in this, it's not my fault. Blame Pleasant rolling. All right. Anyway, so yeah, one cool thing is I guess this muff here is sort of color matched to her Christmas outfit. So you could definitely use that as part of your Christmas display as well. But I don't know. I think the red and blue combo with this is like a little bit jarring. So I don't know. Not my favorite color combo, but I do like all of this stuff individually at least. So, you know, if you're going to do like a mix and match, you have, you know, a few options. Pretty much every winter story for the dolls collections included some sort of travel accessory, and Felicity has this trunk, and this can be actually kind of hard to find. This one is pretty much a mint condition original. It's got the original Pleasant Company sticker on the bottom, and it's wrapped in leather, it's trimmed in leather, it's got these like brass nail heads in it. This is incredibly well made, and one of my favorite details of this actually is when you open it up, it's actually lined with really gorgeous paper. I think the glue, actually, I say mint condition. I think the glue's actually kind of come up on mine. This could be fixed, but if you look here, this little piece has come up. So you can kind of see how it's made in here if you look really closely. But I think this is a really beautifully made piece. I have some like random, like extra spare parts in here for whatever reason, but a really, really beautiful trunk. And it's in this like gorgeous hunter green and brass, which is to me very, very like late 80s, early 90s looking. Again, I think it's so fun to see these historical collections like through the lens of what is probably now also a historical period. So like the view of the 1700s from the 1990s. And the accessory set from Felicity's winter collection is her winter amusements, which, you know, again, they're pretty looking. I especially love this fan. It's definitely like got this sort of brocade fabric that's like, I don't know, it's got some sort of boning or something on the inside that makes it stiff, but she has a fan for whatever. I guess is probably not to cool her off. Is it to like stoke a fire? I should know this. Sorry, I'm probably looking like a complete idiot the more this video goes on, but we have a fan for some sort of use in the wintertime for colonial people. You might want to let me know in the comments if you know what it is. We have the spinning top, which I'm guessing functions. It does. That's pretty cool. I have no idea what that looks like with the frame rate of this video, but this is the first time I've ever spun one, and it's actually spinning for quite a while. I am a little bit impressed, actually. All right, that's enough. We have a lantern, and again, this is a first edition, and I think some of the older ones were made with non-archival acetate for the like screens on this lantern. So most of the oldest ones are like super yellow. I don't think they were originally yellow. I think they were originally like perfectly clear and they've just yellowed over time. And somehow the sticker on mine has gotten like wedged into the frame. I don't know what's up with that, but I think you just basically pull up the back here like that to open it. And then this candle comes out, which is like a completely plastic candle. I think it comes out. Hang on. It does, but I'm going to mess this up and then I'll be sad. But yeah, the candle does come out. It's non-functioning, obviously. It's plastic. You don't want to burn down your apartment like Courtney Love did. But yeah, really nice. This is made out of what seems like galvanized steel. Very, very nice quality. In fact, you could probably pretty easily make a loop for this, like with a hair elastic or something, and have Felicity actually hold it. I think that would be really, really cool looking. And then we have her paper dolls, which most of the historical collections came with. I'm trying to think, a good number of them. I'm trying to remember if Addie had paper dolls. I'm drawing a blank, but I don't think she did. So I guess it was the first 4 historical dolls came with some sort of paper doll in their winter accessories set. And Felicity's came with this jumping jack, which is really difficult to find, especially with the original envelope. I don't know where the box for this is, by the way, but I have it somewhere. But this is basically, I think you're meant to like hold it like this and then you just pull down and it does that, because that was cool in the 1700s. I think maybe, hang on, it's got 2 separate pulls on it. So I think you pull, oh wait, no, this is just like, you hold it like, I see, and you do this. That is absolutely insane. But anyway, so that's part of a complete Felicity's winter collection. Yeah, that's a little bit disturbing, but you know, he's just gonna have to stay there like that. And then the final piece for Felicity's collection is actually probably one of the most sought after and popular sets from this collection because it's so functional. And that's her EWAU Felicity's Winter Accessories undies or underwear. And we have a few different pieces in here that are pretty cool, I think. I generally don't use them because it's honestly, if I'm truthfully honest, it's out of laziness, but a lot of people really love using these because they are really, really functional. So we have these like hip pad kind of things that you're basically meant to tie this, I think, around the back, maybe sort of like a belt almost. And then you sort of like take this, tie it around in the front underneath her garments, and it gives her these like really wide hips, like I guess they love to do in the colonial times. I'm actually surprised they did this on children. This seems like something grown women would do, but it's interesting to me that the colonials thought it was important for 9-year-olds, or maybe Felicity was 10 by the time the story rolled around, but for 10-year-olds to like pad their hips like drag queens, you know, not that there's anything wrong with kids and drag queens mingling, but I feel like there were other reasons that women were padding their hips back in the day. So yeah, I don't know why 10-year-olds in colonial times needed to pad their hips, because I'm pretty sure they weren't doing drag shows. So I don't know why we would need birthing hips on a 10-year-old, but I can't change history. I can only comment on it. One other really fun thing in this set, which is really more for just like historical accuracy and not so much functionality, I don't think anyway, is her pockets. So during the colonial times, children like Felicity, I guess, didn't have pockets sewn into their garments. And you'll notice that pretty much every outfit that Felicity has, her dress will have like a space. I think it's under this part here. You might have to just trust me, bro, but if you get in here, I'm so gonna make this little woman fall over. But right here somewhere, yeah, you can like see there's like a split in her dress, basically right where pockets would be, but it's just like a slit. There's no actual pocket in it, but the pockets were actually a separate piece during colonial times. So this would have been tied around Felicity's waist underneath her dress. So if she needed to put something in her pocket, it was actually a separate little pocket bag on the inside of her outfit. And I think it's really fun that they did this extra embroidery on them. Again, I'm assuming it's historically accurate, but completely unnecessary if you're just putting this on a doll for like function use. But that's the kind of thing I loved about Pleasant Company. It was about like excess, which, you know, I think is really, really fun. So I love the fact that this is embroidered and it does technically function. So if you did want to put like literally like her Bitcoin or whatever in here, you can do that. And the last piece in here, I think I've misrepresented this before in videos. I, for whatever reason, thought these were stays. I am pretty sure this is what the stays are, or is a stay. I just think of this as a corset. Let's see if the pamphlet says anything. Okay, I don't think it says anything about her underwear, but I did just find out that this is a fire screen. So if you're sitting by the fire, you do this to protect your face from the heat, I guess. Where I grew up, you would use something like this to protect your face from the fireball when your uncle deep fries a turkey on Thanksgiving. Anyway, so yeah, a corset for a 10-year-old, very odd concept. Again, don't blame Pleasant Company, blame the colonizers. But yeah, I don't think this serves much of a purpose because, again, I think it's like an odd thing to put on a 10-year-old. But this does actually lace up and go around the doll. Again, probably just adds like volume and bulk that makes closing, like doing the closure on her dresses and stuff, more difficult. So I don't know that many people actually use these. I'm sure some do, especially like adult collectors that are really like into historical fashions. For me, I probably will never put this on a doll because it will involve like actually taking the laces out and everything. I don't want to do that. But all in all, a very cool set, especially considering it's seems to be pretty historically accurate for Felicity's era. But yeah, it's a set that I don't really use that much, but I do think someday it might be fun to try out the stays. Actually, maybe I'll do it on the next outfit for fun. Why not? So that is Felicity's winter story. We have a few extra outfits to look at next that I'm excited about. And so let me see if I can figure these out, and we will look at her work dress with the cardinal cloak. All right, and here we have the first two of the extra outfits that were made for Felicity's collection that weren't necessarily tied to any of the stories. We may have seen them in a book here or there, but they weren't part of like a bigger collection that came with all sorts of accessories and everything. First up, we have her work outfit. And as promised, I showed you what it looks like with the cardinal cloak added to it. And I have to say, I do like this combination a lot better than putting this cloak with the Christmas outfit. I think the colors are a little more harmonious. The bright blue with the bright red was a little bit much, but I think this looks a lot better. Again, probably not exactly as Felicity would have worn it if I had to guess. And in addition to that, again, as promised, I put the like hip padding on her, and probably like the literal only outfit in her entire collection she wouldn't have worn these with, because I'm guessing like a play or work outfit that she's not going to be like trying to pad her hips out. I don't know. Again, I don't know a whole lot about colonial history other than like their interior design and architecture, and even that knowledge is slim. So yeah, this might be a little bit of a nonsensical outfit, but it does kind of at least show you what this stuff kind of looks like together. And actually sitting here with her writing outfit and this like beautiful red cloak on, this looks more Christmassy to me than Felicity's actual Christmas story, again, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and red and green is what I so heavily associate Christmas with. So yeah, this looks extra Christmassy to me, and I think for this year's Christmas display, if I do one, is probably gonna at least incorporate this outfit, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, anyway, I'll go ahead and take her cloak off so we can see this outfit sort of on its own. And you can see here, like, this is super well made just by how heavily it drapes. But yeah, this is like all this is basically just a couple of pieces of fabric. I guess that's what any outfit is really at the end of the day. So as you can see here, I've got these like hip pads under her skirt, and you can kind of see how they're attached here. And like I said, probably just about any other outfit would have maybe been more appropriate for. I can't imagine she would have worn this like this, but I'm feeling a little bit too lazy to take it off, I gotta say. So, you know, just pretend it's her natural hips, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's what everybody said that wore these things. But anyway, these are two of my absolute favorite outfits for Felicity. Again, I think this one was released in 1993. Yeah, as a general rule, like the dolls got most of their collections, maybe the original girls, they kind of got them over 3 years and then started getting extras, whereas once Pleasant Company started really taking off, by the time Felicity was released, and then we had like Addie and Josefina, their collections got rolled out a lot faster. So for instance, like we looked at Felicity's like Meet Felicity, her school and Christmas collections, those were all released in 1991. And then the very next year, she got not only her birthday collection, but then in addition got her summer and winter collections as well. And then the following year, in the third year, she started getting some extra outfits. So the first one that we have here is her work outfit. And it basically came with 4 pieces. It's not a super difficult outfit to find, but getting it mint and complete can be a a little bit of a challenge. So it has the actual dress here, which has this beautiful, it's not quite like a pinstripe, but really fine stripe on here. It's sort of like a beigey cream color with this really beautiful sage green. And I want to say almost like a charcoal stripe. It's kind of hard to see. It might even be like a really dark evergreen. And that's offset with this satin ribbon and almost like a minty color. It's a little like brighter and warmer than the rest of the dress, but I think it adds a little bit of joy to what is otherwise maybe a little bit of a drab outfit, but I gotta say, it really does look extremely beautiful on her. I think those pops of green in there really do draw out the gorgeous green color in this first edition Felicity's eyes. And again, this outfit didn't come with any like special shoes or socks or anything, so I have her in her meat shoes and socks. But yeah, while this was meant to be sort of a like more demure look for, that was meant to be like roughed up a little bit, I think it's one of my favorites in her collection. I think it's just a really great color story. I like the silhouette. I have to say, these like hip pads, like honestly kind of piss me off. I really don't like the way they look. I don't know why. Maybe I was traumatized in a past life by something like this, but I don't know why, but I don't like the way these like make the silhouettes look. Again, I'm a fashion idiot, so I mean, I don't really have much of an authority to say anything about that, but also I was a little bit lazy. It didn't change her ribbon. I think if you were to like pick a more appropriate hair ribbon color, maybe her meat one that's just like sort of a cream color would look better. But I have to say, I kind of like the pop of burgundy because I love burgundy so much. Clearly, thank you, Pleasant Roland, for that. But yeah, the last little piece in this outfit is this, I think, shawl. I think you're maybe meant to like tie it like this, but it just gets so wrinkled. As you can see, it's been tied before, and I don't know, I just kind of like tuck it under her arms like that. And I think that looks pretty good. It helps show off a little bit more of like the minty striped color of her dress. But yeah, a simple look, but nonetheless a really beautiful one that I really, really love. Then moving on to her riding outfit, this might actually be my favorite outfit in Felicity's entire collection. It is a beautiful collection. You can tell that Pleasant Roland really, really enjoyed designing and picking out everything for this collection because it is super duper detailed, a lot of really nice fabrics and lots of extra details. And I have to say, this is probably my favorite amongst favorites because the color on this is so stunning to behold in person. Like I said, it's a very Christmassy evergreen. This is, I don't know if this is wool. Again, it's a similar fabric to what her cloak is made out of. So it's probably meant to represent wool if it's not wool. It feels more like a felt to me, but again, a very, very high quality felt. It feels really, really nice to the touch, and it looks exquisite on her. I believe this outfit was made in 1993. Whatever the copyright year is on this is the first year it was made, because I worked really hard to get first editions from everything. I'm just trying to remember if this was 93 or 94. 1993, so this was a 1993 release. Both of these outfits were released in the same year. So again, early Felicity days. These were released around the same time that Addie debuted as a doll. I'm trying to get mine to stand up nicely here. Her limbs are starting to get a little bit loosey-goosey, so she might be due for either a body swap or a restring before too long. But gosh, is this not a gorgeous doll? So yeah, really high quality fabric. We've got lots of like appliques on here as well with some of these trims and these actual metal buttons that are on here, and we've got a little bit of embroidery. And in addition to that, we have this stunningly beautiful tricorn hat, which might be a little bit difficult to see because it's on a darker backdrop, but again, lots of details in here. We have this gold trim around the like edge of it. We have a proper like bird's feather, which I don't know, is this even legal anymore? I don't know if you can like just take bird feathers and do this, but it was the 90s. What can we do? And in addition to that, we have yet another like trim piece on here as well. So very, very, very well made. And I think it really just sets this outfit off. I don't know. It looks a little bit wartimey to me, so maybe a little bit triggering to some, but it's hard to deny that that's not a beautiful silhouette with just like all of this, like, again, we have this nicely like thick skirt. We have sort of like, I don't know if you would call this a peplum. I would call this a peplum, and it just adds that extra little flouncy detail to this. So it's decidedly feminine, but at the same time, it's utilitarian in a way, and I can just picture her up on Penny riding her in this outfit. I just think this is such a stunningly beautiful outfit for Felicity. And I think redheads typically look very, very good in green, and Felicity is no exception to that. And the fact that she has these beautiful green eyes to just tie it all together, this is really truly an amazing outfit. And this is the one, if I'm going to default to anything for Felicity to live in, if it's between seasons, if I'm just wanting to take her out of a Christmas outfit because, the Christmas season's coming to an end, I generally will gravitate towards this outfit because she just looks so incredibly high quality and beautiful in it. I mean, I'm looking at her on my monitor right now, and I want to buy her all over again because she is that beautiful. But I don't know if I can get her super close to the screen. I've got kind of a weird setup today, but man, that is just about my favorite thing to witness. And I did change her hair ribbon to, it's actually a replica of one of mine, but this is a pretty much exact replica of a replacement ribbon that you could get as part of her replacement ribbons that we'll look at kind of in a little bit. And it probably would have been a little bit nicer if it were a bit of a darker green to kind of match the outfit, but it is a little bit of a pop of color. So some people might actually like the little bit of brightness it adds to the back. And just in case anyone was concerned, I did tie her meat ribbon to her actual stand, so I didn't get it mixed up with this one. So I'm very, very weird about that. I do not like dolls getting their original stuff mixed up. So yeah, I do indeed keep track of everything, probably to an obnoxious degree. But yeah, these are the first two of the extra outfits that came for Felicity, and honestly, they look so incredibly beautiful together, and they are some of my favorites in her entire collection. I think these were really, really great additions. Again, just look how rosy my Felicity's cheeks look like against these like warm beiges and everything. It's just some of the best examples of toy design and manufacturing, I think, in all of history. Since I'm about to change this Felicity's outfit anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get these like hip pads off so you can see what this outfit looks like without them, because like I said, it kind of pisses me off the way these look. So we'll take these off and see what this dress was probably actually meant to look like, if I can get these out of here. All right, I feel like that's better. That looks a little less obnoxious. So yeah, you can still kind of like flounce it out if you want a little bit, but yeah. Oh gosh, these look so good, especially together. I gotta say, this is making me really excited to be able to set up a bigger display in the next house. So it's taking away a little bit of the nervousness about moving to an entirely different country and getting set up there. But this is gonna be my reward at the end, is seeing all of this lined up together, and I'm really excited. Alrighty, and the final limited edition outfits from my collection are Felicity's Town Fair outfit from 1997. That was a limited edition outfit. And then Felicity's riding breeches and tricorn hat, which we will talk about in a second. So I'll start with the one that came out first, especially because I am itching to set this windmill down. This is one of the more expensive items in Felicity's collection because I think they only made them for about a year or two. They were released in 1997, right before Josefina was released. So all of the dolls through Addie got special edition, like limited edition outfits. And they had this like really cool catalog cover that they had with all of them in them. So like Addie's stilting outfit, Felicity's Town Fair, Molly's tennis outfit, that stuff. So Felicity's, I think, is probably of the rarest of them. I couldn't tell you why, because it is a cool looking outfit. I think it's really, really pretty. I love all the different colors in it, but I do know that they are really hard to find complete with this windmill. And I can see why, because this thing feels like it's made out of like just bamboo skewers, like you would do shish kebab with. So I am terrified I'm going to break this. I ended up purchasing this several months ago. Finally, I found one for less than $200, but I still spent a decent amount of money on it. But this is part of a perfect Pleasant Company Felicity collection because this was released in 1997 before the sale of the company. So I had to have it. And it was interesting when I first got it. I didn't realize how big the box would be, but of course it is, because this thing is all one piece and they break so easily. And I've just seen so many that are like smash. I honestly, like, on Pleasant Roland's behalf, I think this is a little bit responsible. This is so delicate. Again, it's just thin little pieces of wood, barely put together. I think we have the world's tiniest screws. Like, hang on, I think this works. So if you get the right breeze on this, it will actually rotate. I am terrified I'm going to break it though, but tiny screws, thin pieces of wood, paper flags and sails. no wonder like most of these broke. So I'm going to be really, really careful and set this aside and just, you know what? I'm actually going to get up and go put this somewhere where I think no one's going to touch it or even look at it. But just while you're here, have a quick look to see what this outfit looks like in the flesh with the windmill, because this is, I think, one of the reasons this outfit is so expensive to find, because I think these just got smashed and broken over the years. So I'm gonna try and not smash and break this one while setting it aside, and we'll continue with this afterwards. That seriously is one of those items you almost don't even want to own, especially if you've spent a bunch of money on it, because you just live in fear that it's going to break. I will probably never display it. It'll live in this box forever. But, you know, like I said, there was a check mark on a checklist, and that was on it. So obviously I'm being a little bit facetious. I obviously love this outfit, and it's got a really interesting mix of colors. I think particularly this sort of, it's almost a navy blue, but it's a little bit lighter than that. It's like a dusty, like kind of midnight blue maybe. And it's got an even darker blue floral pattern in it. This, for some reason to me, does not look like it belongs in Felicity's collection. I think it's this mix of colors or something, because I feel like this fits with her birthday outfit. And I know we have blue for a Christmas outfit, but for some reason, this outfit just seems like a little bit modern for some reason. I don't know why, but it's pretty nonetheless. I love that we have this mix of patterns, and it's got this really interesting pop of gold as well with these trim pieces and the satin ribbon that wraps around her mob cap. It wouldn't be a Felicity outfit without either a mob cap or a tricorn hat, but it really is pretty. I like that this one is not a pinner apron, because those are a little bit annoying. This one actually has shoulder straps that go all the way around to the back, and it sort of ties in a bow neatly at her waist. I ended up keeping the burgundy ribbon on this one because I think this actually looks perfect with this outfit. I think the burgundy looks really good with this sort of lighter pink, and it kind of ties in the more moody blue color as well. So I thought burgundy was the perfect ribbon color for this outfit. But yeah, an exceptionally difficult outfit to find, especially new in the box. My box isn't perfectly mint, but it's in pretty good shape. So this was definitely a triumph to get this for under $200 recently. And I gotta say, I do love the outfit itself. So I probably will have Felicity in this from time to time. I have to say, making these videos has really made me want to have one doll for every outfit in my collection, because seeing them together, it sort of reminds me of being in a retail store almost, because you see the repetition like you do in a store, because obviously they have to have multiples so they can sell multiples. Kids often, I would imagine, only got one of each character and they changed the outfits. That's how it was meant to go. But, you know, as a kid that never really got many dolls, I had a couple of boy dolls. That's another story for another day. But as a kid that would try and like quickly like peek at the pink aisle in Walmart and stuff, I have like the most association with dolls being in multiples and being in their boxes and everything. And I think that's why a lot of collectors collect their dolls in box, because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them never really had dolls as a kid, but they have really strong memories of going in to the toy store like KB Toys or Toys R Us and seeing the toys that they wanted to buy, and still have really good memories of how happy they made them to see them, if only for a few minutes. But just seeing like the wall of boxes, I think can evoke a lot of really hopeful childhood nostalgia for people. And I'm one of those people too. And while I don't keep most of my Pleasant Company stuff in boxes because of the way they're packaged, you really don't get to see anything if you leave them in boxes. There are a lot of things in my collections, like particularly like Barbie, that I like to leave in boxes because it reminds me of being a kid looking at them in the store. So if you ever wanted an explanation of why a lot of people keep stuff in boxes, it's not always because they're trying to just preserve the resale value of them. I'm sure that's some people, but I think a lot of people just like the idea of seeing things brand new in the package, because it feels like you're at the store and you have that hope that you might be able to finally get one that day, and today would be the day. So anyway, that was, I guess, a little bit of a side tangent, but yeah, that's my Felicity Town Fair outfit. This is also another outfit that I got recently. I have made my way through Felicity's collection pretty methodically, just sort of starting with the core collection and then branching out to other things. And we'll talk about some other things I got recently in the next segment, but I never really prioritized the extra outfits because I felt like they were sort of the extra things that didn't involve the core collection. And it seemed kind of weird to have something like this from, I guess, the very late 90s. I can't remember what year this was released, but I think it was the late 90s. Yeah, I just checked. It was 1998, so literally the following year. So this is still Pleasant Rowland's era at Pleasant Company. So she was involved in making this outfit. But these were sort of like the B tier things on my list. And a lot of them are really hard to get because I think they made them like with Pleasant Company. And then sort of as Mattel took over, they started retiring things that probably weren't selling as well or were just not profitable because they were too expensive to make. I'm going to guess this one was probably just not sold a whole lot. It's kind of an odd outfit, and I think that they made it to coincide with the Meet Felicity book. So spoiler alert, if you haven't read Meet Felicity and you're planning on doing it and don't want any spoilers, you're about to get one, so skip ahead a couple of minutes. But in Meet Felicity, she is basically falls in love with this horse that's owned by the like town drunk, basically Jiggy Nye, and he abuses the horse, and it obviously pisses Felicity off because she's such a horse girl, and she basically sneaks out in the middle of the night to go like basically ride the horse and like I guess tame the horse in a way, like to try and like calm the horse down, and then she works her way up to riding Penny basically in the middle of the night. She's sneaking out and like basically illegally riding a horse, whatever. But in that story, obviously Felicity like wears dresses. She's a colonial like 9-year-old, so she didn't have any riding gear. I guess they had horses around their like property and stuff, but Felicity didn't have like proper riding gear. So I guess her dad had an apprentice named Ben, I guess 16 years old according to the pamphlet I just read. But basically Felicity steals Ben's dirty old breeches and puts them on over her shift, which is basically her underwear, and sneaks out in the middle of the night to go ride the horse. So I'm assuming that's what this is referencing, this outfit, because this only came with the tricorn hat and the breeches. Everything else is her meat outfit. So these are her meat shoes, her meat socks, and this is her shift that like is basically her underwear for her meat outfit. So it's a little bit of an odd thing to sell because Felicity doesn't really have any shirts for her collection. I mean, maybe you could look at the riding coat that we just looked at a second ago, the green one. That could probably go with this and look pretty decent. I don't know, the peplum might look weird, but there really wasn't an actual shirt to market with this. So again, it was a little bit of an odd outfit. I really, really love it. I love pants and shirts and jackets and stuff as far as like dolls clothes go, and I guess people clothes too, but I'm guessing they just didn't sell a ton of these because it was a little bit odd. And again, it's pants, it's Felicity, I don't know, but these are really nicely made and the construction on them is really interesting. We've got sort of these like Velcro closures so you can get them on over shoes. Unfortunately, we had another shoe casualty today. I lost another sole on a meat shoe. Again, it's just the name of the game with Felicity shoes. If you plan on taking them off and putting them on and you have a really, really early Felicity, just expect the soles to pop off. So I'm going to have to E6000 those back on, but I'm going to do that later. But anyway, so yeah, it has these like closures around the side so you can kind of cinch them like above her calves, which is really cool. I don't know why this made me laugh, but it has like a proper like fly on it because obviously these were like boys breeches, and so they had functionality on them that I guess Felicity most likely didn't need back in the 1700s. But I don't know, that made me chuckle. I don't know why, but anyway. So yeah, that's Felicity's riding breeches and tricorn hat. Again, I think a really odd thing for her collection in a way, but it ties in with her story. And I think it's something very, very different for her collection. So I really, really like having these. One of these days, I probably will pick up that horse that they made. I think they eventually rebranded it to be Penny. I can't remember, but there was like basically a horse that looked just like Penny as part of like the extras collection. I don't know if they released it in 93 or what, but anyway, if I end up getting that, then I'll probably put her like in this to ride the horse on display. So that's the last of the 2 special edition outfits in my collection. There is one more outfit that I think counts as a Pleasant Company outfit that I don't have yet. And I've just been kind of like passing up, semi good deals on it. It's her traveling gown that they ultimately made her meat outfit a little bit later on. It's that purple one that I think is really, really beautiful. And I want it just because it's pretty, but it's also an outfit from 1998. So it was designed under Pleasant Rowland's tenure at Pleasant Company. So that's something that's on my wish list that I really would like to have. I'm going to try and get one before I move, but if not, I'll eventually get one anyway. But that's really, I think, one of the last things that I need for a perfect Pleasant Company era Felicity collection. So I'm just waiting on the right one to come along. And there are a few other things like I think there's a tea lesson outfit and like a gala outfit, but Again, I will eventually get them because I like them, but I don't consider them part of the scope of my actual toy collection. So they're just fun extras for me to have. So one of these days I'll get them when I find them for a good deal, but I'm just not reserving money to spend on things that were made after like the year 2000 because I have so many things for Pleasant Company that I've had to collect in addition to all of the 80s and 90s Playline stuff that I collect. So that's sort of where in the Pleasant Company and American Girl timeline my most of my collections in, including Felicity's. So anything released after this outfit, I don't have at this point and might not have for a little while, but we're going to do the grand finale with probably my absolute favorite things that Pleasant Company ever made for Felicity and potentially ever. So we're going to like cut away for a minute. I've got a lot of construction to do on a bed and digging out a bunch of extra little things, but I have pretty much everything from the last pages of Felicity's catalog, which is depending on what your catalog you're looking at. I think they're most commonly known as either Pleasant Dreams Felicity or Felicity's Treasures and Collections. So we're about to see some really big, chunky colonial inspired furniture. And I've probably got about 2 hours of work ahead of me between now and when you see it. But I'm going to take a quick break. And in a couple seconds, you will see me right back with the grand finale. Next, we have Felicity's nighttime collection. So this is going to consist of her bed, her nightgown, her nightstand, nighttime necessities, her clothes press, which we'll look at in a minute because I couldn't fit it on screen clearly because this bed is enough to put a medium-sized dog on for the night. And I will go ahead and admit that I didn't properly put this bed together. So it basically assembles like IKEA furniture and it's like a full-on four-poster canopy bed made out of like mahogany wood, but it screws together basically exactly like IKEA furniture. And I didn't put the bolts in properly. And I will not disclose whether or not that is a chronic problem for me and whether or not any pieces of furniture in my house have fallen apart. But I will leave that a secret on the internet. But yeah, so if I breathe on this wrong or if like a light gust of wind blows through the window, yeah, this bed might completely collapse and maybe kill me. It's so heavy. But this is one of my favorite Pleasant Company pieces of furniture because as you can see, this is one of the like nicest things that they have ever made. Like I said, this is like fully constructed out of I think like mahogany, I don't know. And then all of these like curtains are this really beautiful linen. Like you can tell that Pleasant Roland was like, this is my dream bed and I'm just going to make it for Felicity. We also have this really beautiful toile print on her bedspread. This is completely complete and it's a first edition from 1991 that I bought from the original owner who I don't think liked it or didn't have space for it because this is in perfectly mint condition, more or less, and I just absolutely love Felicity's bed. I think these beds were popular in the 90s as well, possibly even the 80s, because my parents had a very similar bed to this, just without all of like the curtains and stuff. But yeah, like red gingham and French toile and everything was super popular at this time. So yes, it was historically accurate for Felicity's time, but like the colonial aesthetic was really running hot in the 80s and 90s. Again, I just think of like the McAllister's house on Home Alone. So yeah, I spent like an hour putting this together like incorrectly last night, but you can see here, I'll try and show you like if you can see the top, like I'm zoomed so far out to try and show you as much of this bed as I can, but you basically tie each curtain with these like cotton strings basically and then you just drape this like cap over it basically to hide all of that. But this is one of the coolest things that I think has ever been made for a doll. Again, it comes in like a billion pieces, and actually one really cool thing about it is if this is something you want for your collection and you just want to enjoy it sometimes, it does collapse really easily. So like any other piece of IKEA furniture, you take a few screws out, you blow on it, and you can like flat pack it. It literally flat packs to like a couple inches tall. So that is my favorite thing about this, other than the aesthetic, is that you can actually flat pack it and stick it under your own bed so you don't have to look at it all the time. Because this is seriously, like, I'm not kidding. This is like the size of a small oven. But anyway, I have no idea if you can even hear me talking right now because there's so many obstacles between my mouth and the microphone, but I thought it would be worth showing like how all of this stuff looks together because again, it's so incredibly beautiful and it's just got all of these extra details on it. Oh, I'm going to be really, really careful and try and rotate it a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't fall off the table. I don't know if you can see here. You can kind of see how it has these swing caps You might have to look up a picture of it because I'm not breaking this bed for the sake of a YouTube video, but it even has these like brass swing caps to cover up the bolts that go through there to assemble the bed. And that's also, I don't know if it's historically accurate, but again, I know my parents had that as like on their like four poster bed, had these same exact swing caps. So if it's not historically accurate to the colonial era, it's certainly historically accurate to 1991. But it's an incredibly, incredibly beautiful bed. If I pull the curtains back here a little bit, you can see that it has like a proper headboard. Her pillow is like really, really flat. All of the early Pleasant Company pillows were flat like that. I mean, I guess the dolls just had really sore necks. Although if Felicity was like 35, she would probably not be capable of riding a horse if she had to sleep on a bed like this. But anyway, yeah, really, really gorgeous piece of furniture that I'm probably going to have to move out of the way so we can talk about some other things. But I did want to share this today, so that's why I spent all this time putting it together before immediately flat packing it to put in a moving box to move halfway across the world. But I'm not particularly worried about this. It looks so fragile, like assembled and everything, but yeah, once you flat pack it, it should probably travel pretty well. I'm gonna see if I can scoot this to the side so I can sort of have it in frame while we talk about Felicity's other pieces from this collection. I love this bed so much, I want it to be in frame, but I can't like also reach the microphone and just move. So I'm gonna shove this to the side and see if I can keep this in frame. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to take it out of frame and figure something else out. All right, it's looking a little messy in here, but you know, this is just how it goes when you have like 1,000 pounds of doll furniture to show off in like a 7 hour long video. But anyway, here we have her nightstand and nighttime necessities. So the nightstand is made with the same quality and craftsmanship as the bed, and her clothes press. It's this really beautiful solid wood. I don't know if it's actual mahogany. I'm just saying that to sound smart, but I literally don't know exactly what kind of wood it is. But very, very fine furniture like you would see in any other like Queen Anne style piece of furniture that's like an antique. I think this nightstand is so beautiful, and it has this brass pull on here and a functioning drawer that I don't think I have anything stored in there, but this like actually functions, which is so cool. And I've got her nighttime necessities. Now, I have the first version of them that came out in 1991 because, fun fact, Felicity was actually the first character to receive nighttime necessities, which was in 1991. And then 2 years later, the rest of the dolls got them. So in 1993, everybody got their nighttime necessities, and Felicity's got upgraded. So in 1991, all she had was this bed warmer and this candlestick with the, or like whatever this is called, the candle and candlestick holder. And these are actual brass. And then we've got like a solid wood handle on the bed warmer. The 1993 version of her nighttime necessities had a book with it, and I can't remember what it was because I don't have it. At some point, I'll probably pick up the book or just like an updated set of it. But because I collect first editions, it's not as important to me to have that book because it's basically a revamped version of it. But I would like to have it someday just because it adds an extra detail to the display. So that's why you don't see that little brown book on this display here, is because it wasn't part of the original 1991 set. But they were super well made, like everything else during this era. We've got a nice, like, it's a plastic candle, and you can see here it actually has the original sticker. It was made in Taiwan. It's all generically labeled though, so the original nighttime necessities didn't have Pleasant Company stickers, as we've discussed before on certain things. So these all just have basically the country where they were made. So this was made, I believe, in India. They were doing a lot of their metal pieces in India at the time, and a lot of the plastic and wood stuff was coming from Taiwan. So we have this really adorable candlestick holder, which I guess she was to use like scurrying through the house at night, trying to sneak out to go ride a horse in the middle of the night. Crazy. But yeah, this is actual solid, I believe this is solid brass, and this would polish up really nicely. I like the patina on it, so I'm just going to leave it. But this would have originally been like a super shiny brass, a lot more like the bed warmer that we have right here. You can see here, the sticker on this actually fell off. The adhesive kind of dried out, so I've got it stored in here. So I'm going to be really careful. But this little generic made in Taiwan sticker that you probably can't even see was originally on this, again, with no Pleasant Company branding. That's how you know it's a true 1991. But yeah, we have this cute little bed warmer that I guess she put coals or something in to make it warm, and probably stuck it under her mattress just to kind of keep her warm on those cold Williamsburg nights. But yeah, this is definitely like super like historical looking. And I think in the catalog, they kind of have her just sort of holding it like this. I was scared to do this. I set this up last night, and this is all done in my bedroom, believe it or not. And yes, I am running out of space. It looks like a war zone in here. Thankfully, that's changing in the new house. I'm actually going to have a room to work, film, and put my doll collection in. So it'll all be separate. So if something falls in the night, it won't scare me and think there's an intruder coming to kill me. But yeah, I didn't set it up like this last night because I was worried. I'm trying to see if you can even see this. I can't see my monitor. This bed is so big. But I was going to set this up like this because that's sort of how it looks in the catalog. But I was scared it was going to fall over and scare me in the middle of the night. So anyway, just 2 pieces in her nighttime necessities as of 1991. But they're really, really cool looking. And again, they're actual metal. Like this is brass. This is actually lacquered. So it's not having as much patina. The inside is obviously not lacquered, so it looks insane inside. Yeah, we actually did have a coating on this one, so it's not as tarnished. Even when you lacquer brass, it can get tarnished over the years, but not nearly as much as ones that are unlacquered, like her candlestick holder. But anyway, we'll give this back to her because it is starting to get cold outside. So yeah, and another fun thing that I got to do last night was put Felicity in her nightgown for the first time in my entire life. I generally don't put dolls in their like nighttime clothes for whatever reason, except for Molly. I really like her pajamas, so I've done that a few times, and I have the really rare ones that are hard to find. But yeah, for the first time in my life, I put Felicity in her nightgown with her little cap, and I gotta say, it looks a lot better than I thought it would. It's really loose and blousy. I didn't think it would be this loose, and the neckline on it is super wide. It actually has a drawstring in it, so this thin little satin piece of ribbon is actually meant to be pulled, and it gathers around her neck. So I think the catalog picture shows it even more like tight around her neck, but this was as much as I was comfortable doing. So yeah, you just pull on it and tie a bow, and it kind of cinches it around her neck. I think it has a really lovely look, and you're meant to also do the same thing with her cap, kind of. It doesn't have a drawstring, but you do like tie it in a little bow under her chin. And I just think this looks so much like the catalog. It's so adorable, and that's what I was afraid of in the middle of the night last night, so glad I didn't do that. But this really just sets this whole thing off, right? And you can see here she has, I think they're called mules. I should have read the catalog for sure before doing this, but these little shoes here, this is a true 1991 nightgown with like mules. I think they're called mules. Her little slippers. At least in 1991, they were really, really cheaply made. I guess I forgot to say, we've looked at a lot of stuff from like 92 and 93 up until now, but most of the bedtime collections were released in the first year in 1991. The only new additions, I guess, for Felicity's collection was this nightstand. I think everything else you're looking at right now is a 1991 release. But anyway, the very original ones, at least, of these mules are really, really cheaply made. They're basically what feels like actual hide. They're like leathery, but it's just 2 pieces like really sewn together. This actually looks almost something like it's from like Kaya's collection, even though I feel like Kaya's would look a lot better made than these. But anyway, yeah, these are really kind of cheaply made, and they do kind of stretch over their feet and they look okay. But yeah, these aren't like the finest piece in Felicity's collection. It's kind of funny to see these shoes compared to the rest of the pieces that we're looking at on screen, because they're probably the cheapest made thing that we're looking at. But I really do love this whole set altogether. It was really, really fun last night when it was like dark outside. I had the lamps low, like just assembling all of this and putting it together. I did kind of feel like, you know, I was treating my 9-year-old self by letting him, you know, enjoy Felicity's nighttime collection. That was really fun to do. So, you know, I guess that's a thing I can check off my bucket list. All right, so I'm going to move this bed out of the way, and we're going to look at my other favorite piece of furniture from Felicity's collection. All right, I think I got everything as well positioned as I can. I know we're looking at some random boxes and half of Felicity, but we will soldier on. I know you've been hanging out with me for quite some time now, and you're probably ready for me to wrap this up. But this is really one of my like favorite pieces that Pleasant Company has ever made. This is Felicity's clothes press, and it is made like any other piece of Queen Anne colonial style furniture. It is solid wood and is probably made nicer than most people's kitchen cabinets are these days. It is fully functioning. I forgot to check if there's anything in here, so we'll see if there are any surprises. I don't think so. Let's see. Now, just some random shelves and I think hardware. I can barely see what even is this. Yeah, I think this is all the... No, what is this? I have some more, like, random stuff hiding here. That's the life of a doll collector. So I randomly have Elizabeth's meat accessories in there. I don't even have Elizabeth, so explain that. But anyway, we've got Basically, they call it a clothes press. I would probably call this an armoire or wardrobe, but anyway, the shelves in here are adjustable. This does not flat pack. So when you like have to store this or ship this, it takes up exactly this much space, and it is humongous. You can see here, like I'm a pretty, I would say average size person. I don't know what actual average is. I am just shy of 6 feet tall. Not to sound like those guys that are like 5'6" and say, oh, I'm 6 feet tall. But I'm like 5'11" roughly, and you can see how big this is compared to my head and my insane hair that is not cooperating today. But this is incredibly well made. Again, we have brass hinges, brass pulls. This all swings like basically a really nice kitchen cabinet. And the shelves inside are adjustable. They're little pegs, sort of like, I mean, like you would see like on most shelving units that have adjustable shelves. They're little pegs that go in holes on the side. So I've got to, I don't know, I haven't really used this much since I've gotten it. I've just enjoyed looking at it from the outside. But yeah, this is just two shelves put together, but you can actually separate them. So there's 3 shelves that you can arrange. And then obviously here would be your 4th shelf. So you can put a lot of stuff in this. And on top of that, these drawers function and you can store things in there as well. This one is so new and minty that it still actually has the original like plastic film protector on the brass. And I think that's why the pulls are in such good shape. So I'm just going to leave that on there instead of pulling them off. I got this again from the same person I got the bed and like all of the furniture you're looking at in this segment, I got from the same seller. That it basically was her childhood collection that she took really, really good care of. I think if I had to guess, I would say her mom was more into the dolls than she was. So the stuff didn't get played with heavily. So this is in pretty much mint condition. And they're really hard to find like this because they are actually made out of wood and they're stained and they're not really lacquered with anything too intense. So if you ding this or scratch it, it's going to like get messed up. So these can be really hard to find in super duper mint condition. It took me years to find one like this and not spend like $400 on it because that's so much money to spend on something like this. But I was really, really patient and eventually got my hands on the perfect one. And it's worth it to do that. I will say, do not buy one of these unless you want to be stuck with it forever. They are a nightmare to ship. They weigh, like, I couldn't tell you what this weighs, but probably 20 pounds if I had to guess. It like, it's easier to pick up a baby, but probably equally as easy to drop. But I absolutely love this piece. And again, just comparing it to Felicity as well, this is like the perfect scale for her. I mean, like when you put her side by side with it, like this is actually to the correct scale. I feel like most doll companies would have made something that was like this tall and called it a day, but this is really the correct scale for her. Again, I'll just put her next here. And now imagine if you don't have this, imagine one of your dolls, like again, 18 inches tall. This thing is about 2 feet tall. It's humongous, but it is equally as beautiful as it is big. So I don't know, there's not a whole lot else to share about it other than just to marvel at its beauty. Again, Felicity's furniture is so, so good. And it's all more or less like made out of the same wood material. So it all goes together really, really nicely. I think I have her desk somewhere right here. Let's see if I can fit it on the table. I don't know if it's going to fit, but you can see here, it's all the same quality, same wood color, and it all just blends really, really nicely. So I think Felicity's furniture is probably peak Pleasant Company if I had to guess. I do love Josefina's, but yeah, as far as the best furniture Pleasant Company has ever made, I'm gonna give the award to Felicity. But yeah, I have just never seen any other toy company get this like anywhere near close to this quality. This is truly a feat of being like I would assume that they sold thousands and thousands and thousands of these, but you just don't see stuff like this these days. And this is like truly why I love collecting 80s and 90s Pleasant Company, because I think the quality is unmatched in all of toy history. So I'm going to push this to the side a little bit and then we'll make some space here. I've got 2 more things to show you as part of her treasures and collections, and they are some pretty difficult things to find. It can be done. I'll start with the one that's a little bit easier to find. And that's her shoes and socks replacement set. I believe we've looked at this on the channel already when I bought that huge Felicity lot. I think it was last year, about a year ago. And I still have this set. This is, what is it? EXOA, which is her extras that they sold sort of at the last spread of each of the dolls like catalog collections. So yeah, they basically had some replacement parts because, as you can imagine, and certainly if you buy vintage dolls, you know, shoes are the first thing that goes missing. So over the years, they started adding like replacement parts for certain things like coat hangers, just like all their small parts that easily got lost. So her shoes and socks were obviously an important thing to add to her collection. I believe this is a true 1992 set. Again, this came with like a completely like first edition Felicity collection. So it's mostly replacements for things we've already seen, like her garters, her meat socks, which these are actually interesting. They're not as woolly as her meat socks. These are actually pretty good replacements. They're a little bit thinner, so they probably work with shoes a little bit better. We also have replacements for her birthday socks in here. Again, these beautiful pale blue knitted socks with the gorgeous like flower embroidery up the sides. Really, really beautiful. And then we have new shoes, I believe, for her collection. So you can put either, like, they come with replaceable bows basically. So we have these white faux leather shoes that I think were ultimately designed like with her Christmas outfit in mind. And I do think later sets of Felicity's Christmas outfit did come with both shoes basically identical to this and the blue hair ribbon we discussed earlier. I forgot to mention that it also came with shoes to the best of my knowledge in later years. But yeah, the shoes and socks replacement set gave you the option of basically snapping off, if I can do this without messing it up, these little bows snap off basically, and you can replace them. And you could probably make your own actually if you wanted to, and you had the dexterity to be able to do it. But yeah, you got a set of blue bows and a set of burgundy bows, and you could change them obviously to suit whatever outfit you were going to put her in. So anyway, that's her shoes and socks set. It's kind of difficult to find. It can cost you like upwards of like 75, maybe even as much as $100. It can be a little bit pricey to find, but at the end of the day, it's not like a super requirement for Felicity's collection. There's nothing like really that exciting that you can't find individually for pretty cheap elsewhere. So this is just sort of a collector kind of thing to do if you want like a complete brand new like mint inbox collection. I would consider this part of that, but for most Felicity collectors, this isn't like that big of a deal because again, these pieces are throughout her collection in other forms. And the last piece I'm going to show you as part of her treasures and collections are one of the rarest pieces in Felicity's collection, and that's her ribbon replacement. So this is the very, very first version that was released. I believe they did these in 1991. I'd have to look at the catalog and remember, but I'm almost certain in 1991 they had these. If not, they probably added them in 1992. But these are basically replacement hair ribbons for her collection, and these sets are so incredibly hard to find. I'm actually not going to take these out. You're going to have to look up pictures of them if you want to see, but these are basically a set of 4 ribbons. In here, we've got a cream colored ribbon for her meat outfit. We've got a like berry colored ribbon that goes with like her school outfit and a few other things. We have a royal blue satin ribbon that goes with mainly her Christmas outfit. And then there is a green grosgrain ribbon. And we've seen versions of that throughout this video, so I don't need to take these out. You can just trust me that the original ones are still sealed in here. But yeah, this is incredibly hard to find. Again, only collectors really want this kind of thing. Again, I would not suggest you go hunting this down unless you're trying to make a complete like mint collection. But for me, this was one of the most exciting things that came with that lot that I purchased last year because this was just not showing up on eBay for me. These ribbon sets are so hard to find, and you're going to see my Samantha ones too. And spoiler alert, I spent hundreds of dollars getting this for Samantha's collection. So yeah, for collectors, this is a really big deal. If you're just here casually looking at Felicity's collection, you're probably like, stop talking about a paper bag with some ribbons in it. So that's going to do it for my Felicity collection. I hope you had fun today because I know I did. I have to say, I don't always get to see my collection like this because of how much stuff I have and how little space I have currently. So when I'm able to bring everything out and start putting it together and looking at it and like more or less playing with it in the form that it was originally meant to be played with, it's such a treat for me because as familiar as I am with all of this stuff and I think about it all the time, I don't actually get to see it set up like this as commonly as I'd like to. And this really was a treat, especially seeing that bed put together, seeing seeing her in all of her nighttime necessities with her wardrobe. It really is a sight to behold. And like more than ever, I really appreciate just how much thought and quality and craftsmanship went into these original collections. As I've said before, it is completely unmatched in terms of playline quality for children's toys. And that's why I'm into other doll lines. As you see, I collect things from the 80s and 90s, but I have not fallen as deep into a rabbit hole for anything, including Barbie, who has a super rich collector community in her own right and is really fun, and people love Barbie. And in fact, she's more popular than collecting Pleasant Company and American Girl. But I started with this, and it's so hard to collect anything else this fervently because it just lacks the depth and the craftsmanship. And this, like I said, it's just completely unmatched by anything else in toy history. And it is such a privilege to have pretty much all of it and to be able to share it with you. If you want more Felicity, I actually did a full catalog flip through of her collection over on Patreon. So you can check that out at patreon.com/idreamofjohnny. We went through every page and talked about childhood memories and talked about basically all of the stuff you saw today. And it's just, you know, I guess this was also a long form video today, but it is yet another long form video. I think the video was roughly an hour long. I can't remember. I haven't fully edited it yet. But if you like cozy catalog flip throughs, we just did Felicity last week and the rest of the dolls are on the way. So yeah, I'd love it if you check out my Patreon. I've also got tons of other videos on YouTube if you want to keep hanging out. And I guess until I see you in the next video, please be sure to take care of yourself and I'll see you soon. All right. Bye.